And we have our interpreter available tonight.
We have Vivian Rodriguez tonight. Thank you.
Sí, muy buenas noches y bienvenidos de parte de la Junta Directiva del Distrito Escolar de Santa Bárbara. Si hay alguien que necesita la ayuda de un intérprete, por favor levante la mano para darle un audífono. Gracias. Thank you.
Gracias. We also have headsets available for those who need assistance with hearing, as noted on our screen. That brings us to introductions, proclamations, presentations, or recognitions from Dr. Sarvis.
Sorry, we're just getting organized here. I'm going to wait for the gate introductions for just a moment and go to our two new high school principals. Two secondary schools will begin the school year with new principals. We'll have Ed Behrens, who has been the assistant principal at San Marcos High School and will now be the school's principal at San Marcos High. Ed joined our secondary district in 1991, initially as an English language development teacher at Santa Barbara High School. Oh, so you were a Don for a while. I'll be darned. Well, he's changed his wardrobe because for the past 14 years, Ed has worked as an assistant principal at San Marcos. In that role, his responsibilities have included oversight or coordination of the student success team, grading and attendance procedures, discipline and attendance, and campus supervision, and school facilities. In fact, Ed has been in full training for the principalship as he rotated through all of the assistant superintendent's responsibilities for curriculum and instruction, counseling and support services, scheduling, and discipline. Ed has also served as the summer school principal, co-created the Health Academy, chaired various committees, and chaired the school's 2009-10 WASC accreditation visit. Finally, Ed Behrens is well known on the campus and in the community, and I estimate that he has already watched over 1,350 San Marcos games and student performances. Ed, would you like to come up to the podium?
Good evening. I'm extremely excited about working with the San Marcos High School community as the new principal of San Marcos. I plan to work collaboratively with the staff to meet the needs of all students and to improve student achievement. Next year we will be focusing on our WASC action plans and goals. In particular, we'll be addressing the needs of our English learner students and working on improving our math scores. My plan is to support existing programs, to bolster some of the existing programs, and to introduce new programs to address the needs of all students. I look forward to working with the district staff. I look forward to working with the board, and I really am looking forward to San Marcos High School meeting its true potential as one of the top high schools in the state of California. Thank you.
And John Becchio, Santa Barbara Junior High principal, will be the new high school principal at Santa Barbara High School. He will become the 20th principal, wow, in the school's long, illustrious history. John worked at Santa Barbara Junior High from 1996 through 98 as the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Youth Service Specialist. He went on to become a teacher in our secondary district and taught a variety of subjects including health, technology, exploration, woodshop, physical education, math, and environmental studies. I didn't know you could teach all those things. No. Jerry Fawcett does know that. There we go. In 2004, he worked as an assistant principal at Goleta Valley Junior High and La Colina Junior High School. From 2004 to 2006, John was assigned to Santa Barbara Junior High as the assistant principal, where his duties included master schedule, facilities, student discipline, teacher observations, evaluations, and summer school coordinator. In 2006, John became the school's principal. He took over as principal in year 3 program improvement and was asked and was tasked with full implementation of a comprehensive restructuring plan that included school-wide instructional model, bi-weekly common benchmark assessments, professional learning community teams, and strategic and intensive intervention programs. And I believe the API for that school is up to 821 at this point. 23. You know, Robin Sawaski and I were meeting with the staff at Santa Barbara High School today, and I was telling them, and you will be an 821 school, so I got it wrong. You'll have to correct it when you go out there. Anyway, they're very excited to know that John Vecchio is coming to their school. John?
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you placing your confidence in me to take over Santa Barbara High School. The one thing that I have heard over and over again in the last 3 weeks is how rich the tradition is at Santa Barbara High. And so I look forward to being a part of that. I actually was in a meeting up there at the principal's office, and I saw the 20 heads of all the principals in there, and I wasn't sure if that's, I guess that's a good thing. They had a lot of principals. Someone referred to it as the principal graveyard. But, you know, I wanted to tell you the two things that I'm really excited about. One is reuniting with many, many parents and students who just went through my school over the last 5 years. And that part I'm looking forward to. They have called me and emailed me and are showing a great amount of support for the transition. The second thing and probably the thing I'm most excited about actually, is the fact that I don't really know too many staff members. And for me, that is something I truly look forward to, is meeting the great people that are up there. Becoming a part of that Don's tradition is also exciting, but it's more the people. For me, Dr. Sarvis said in a meeting today that a truly great organization has a really great team spirit. In so many words, that's what he said. And I think for me, my mission next year really is to develop relationships, build trust, and really develop a cohesive team that can make some of the strides like what Mr. Behrens was referring to. We'll be doing all those things. That's what we do in education, but for me it's going to be really important that I build relationships with staff. And I think that's a strong suit of mine, and so I really look forward to that. Again, I thank you for placing your confidence in me.
Well, I'd like to go on to recognize through the Friday, March 11 Tri-County Gate Council recognition of the following individuals from our districts in its We Honor Our Own 2010-11 Awards Luncheon in Ventura. I'd like to introduce the recipients from our districts. Natalie Ireland. Is Natalie's not here. Natalie's a fourth grade teacher at Franklin Elementary. Leo Borden is not here. And he's an 8th grade social science teacher at Santa Barbara Junior High. Janet Rouse, we know, is a secondary gate parent who's always been heavily involved in these activities. Sandy Robertson, who is here. Sandy, why don't you come forward, is well known to us as our secondary gate program coordinator, who's now a retired teacher, sure she is, and tireless supporter of the gate program. Nilufar Kilpalainen. How did I do? Nilufar, how did I do?
You did as poorly as you always do.
I've known Nilufar for a long time. That's it. Nilufar is a secondary gate council parliamentarian in Parrott. She's been a vital presence on the Gate Advisory Council for 10 years. Nilufar is a terrific team player and can be counted on to support the gate program needs. And Theresa Koontz, elementary gate program coordinator, and Pacific Region of the California Association for the Gifted's Distinguished Service Award recipient. Look at this, my gosh, for 2011. Theresa exemplifies all the qualities of a truly dedicated gate leader, teacher, parent, and community member who continually advocates for the special needs of gifted students. Theresa serves as a gate coordinator in both Carpinteria and Santa Barbara elementary districts. Congratulations.
Can I share a little bit about that? I actually got to go to the luncheon, and it was so exciting to have this huge team from Santa Barbara being recognized, and we actually had quite a table between Carpinteria and Santa Barbara. And so when I left and I was in the parking lot, I called Barbara and I said, we have got to get these people here, because it was such a nice representation for our district and support of the GATE students in our district. We invited Janet Rouse also to join Neelafar, even though Janet was the one who nominated Sandy this year. Janet was honored last year, but both Janet and Neelafar are graduating this year. So they're students, they've been going through the system, being a huge support all along the way in countless ways. I can't even name them all. And so I just really wanted to recognize, in particular, our two parents who've done so much for our GATE program, and led us on the way through our transition to honors as well, with lots of support. So thank you.
Ms. Parker?
I just want to say a special thank you. I am so impressed with the parents and the teachers, and it is wonderful that everybody got these honors. I did get the opportunity to go down to the California Association for the Gifted conference this past year with other teachers and parents, but particularly with Sandy and Theresa. The work that you do for the GATE students in our district, it's just tremendous. So thank you so much.
I'm going to put Sandy on the spot here. So I have to thank you for your years of service. Sandy was my junior high school English teacher. And so I know you've worked really hard. You're Mrs. Robertson's to so many students, and we all remember your English class and how engaged and how hard we work. So thank you for everything you've done.
And that's it for our presentations, announcements.
Okay.
Shall I go on with the superintendent's
Thank you.
report?
Yes, but I just also wanted to echo my, and add my thanks to our GATE staff, our GATE parents, advisory committee members, et cetera, for all the work that you do on behalf of the students, and for helping us make that transition with the honors, because that was a big change, and it was something that we worked for a long time to put in place, and so I appreciate making that a smooth transition. Thank you very much. And I also wanted to go back and add my congratulations to our two new principals as well, Mr. Behrens and Mr. Becchio at my alma mater. And we look forward to having really great years at both of those schools, because I think both of you will bring a great leadership to your respective schools. So thank you, and congratulations on your appointments.
Good, thank you.
Dr. Service.
Well, board generally requests to hold fundraisers come to the board for approval. Word of the recent earthquake and tsunami tragedy in Japan mobilized our student leaders to raise funds to benefit the victims. Things are going on all over the district, and the board will be receiving requests to hold fundraisers. But in the interim, I am authorizing each school's request on your behalf. Along those lines, we just had some rather heavy recent rains. I'm pleased to report no major flooding. We had a couple boxes get wet right here in the district office. I rushed down to make sure none of those are the superintendent's records, so the rest of you will have to scramble. But we didn't, we often have flooding like at Goleta Valley Junior High, and there are a number of locations at our sites that are subject to flooding, so I was very pleased that we saw our way through this storm. We'll see about the rest of the week. Earlier I announced that our new high school principals had been appointed. This leaves a specific opening at Santa Barbara Junior High. We have posted that position. It's open as a notice position through the end of April, and we'll be taking some time to make these selections for our new principalships. We also have a principalship open at Monroe Elementary School. We posted that position as well. For the assistant principal position, we need to wait and see how our budget cuts settle out before we move forward with that position. We've received the Healthy Kids Survey results from fall 2010. You have those in your boxes, and in general, our results look better than the state and national results. These measures of alcohol, tobacco, drug use and safety, as well as protective factors such as carrying relationships with adults and teachers on campuses, high expectations, and school connectedness. They use an index they call the School Connectedness Index. That's not just a word I made up. They are all important to the success of our students, and we take them seriously and will watch them closely. In fact, it's particularly interesting to see those very few areas where our numbers look worse than the state or than the national numbers. We've not yet received the California Climate Survey results, which we expect to receive tomorrow. You know, the state often, well, of course these aren't coming from the state, but you know, we'll often hear, okay, you'll get your results on a certain date, and then we just wait and eventually do get our results. But they're expected soon, and we look forward to seeing the staff survey results that have a number of indicators about school climate. Board, posted on the bulletin board in the back of the room is a sheet that looks like this. Here at the dais you have your copy. It looks a little bit smaller than that. These are our client service standards. You will soon see these at every campus. As part of this project, we've developed guidelines for staff as well as complement and concerns form for our stakeholders, and you'll see that you have a yellow form that's attached to that. These standards reflect management and staff discussions about the standards of excellence that we set for our organization in serving students and parents and other members of the community as our clients. And I have to report again that I'm often asked about a retirement incentive. There will be no retirement incentive this year. We do not have the money to fund the incentive nor to pay, as we have sometimes in the past, for additional years of health benefits. And without that money, we cannot offer an incentive. 2 years ago, we had a sudden influx of federal money. We don't have that now, and even if all of these great things do come to pass, if we are able to unify our elementary and secondary district, and even if these ballots to extend taxes get to the June ballot at the state level, and even if they are approved by the voters of California, the best our district could do in that event would be to bring back most, if not all, of the district budget cuts. And this would still not leave us additional money to find a retirement incentive. So I think it's important to be clear about that, because we have people who are just waiting, just in case there's a retirement incentive. So we've tried to get the word out. Well, this afternoon there was a bleachers dedication ceremony at Dos Pueblos Ealing's Aquatic Center. The project had been a long time in coming, and we're very thankful to the support of South Coast Community Aquatics. And board member Susan Deacon, who's been close to the project, may want to comment on the ceremony under board, well, how about right now?
I was there. I'll be brief. It was great. It was wonderful to see all the students in the water. There was a meet against Buena, so we saw diving and swimming, and we were able to thank some of the donors. So it was great, and the bleachers are beautiful. It was a long road to get there. A lot of hurdles were faced, but it was a testimony, I think, to everybody's will and determination. So it was great.
And I understand that we waited till the sun was out to dedicate the bleachers. We had to wait a while to make sure that that would happen. Let's see, wrapping up. My office regularly issues a report to the board called the Board Brief. It's a collection of articles and informal items on school and district matters. A copy of the March 11 Board Brief is on display in the reception area. The last Board Brief, you may remember, included a report on Civic Center revenue. among other things. And finally, the list of Santa Barbara School District's 145th events and performances is being updated daily. Copies are before you on the dais, they're on the side table, and they are on the district website. Chris, if you'd like to, well, let's see. Dave, let's put that district website up on the screen so that people can see what activities and student performances are going on at our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis. That brings us to item C2, board comments and correspondence. Do any board members have any comments or correspondence to share? Mr. Herron?
Just a few things. It was great going to Chaucer's bookstore, I think last week. Dos Pueblos Engineering Academy was there in the parking lot, and they had one of their robots there showing off. Amir was there with, I think, 4 of the previous students who the book New Cool was aimed at, and they were all in a row signing the book, and the line was probably half a block long, and I know they sold out. So I know they did very well out there at that. It was nice to see all the people there. I went to a Dos Pueblos session on cyberbullying. Mr. Sumter put on 3 events at each high school. I went to the Dos Pueblos. It was sad that only about 20 people were in the audience, but to get the DA there, or representative of the DA, and just the basic program, the sheriff, a lot of good information. And so we have to continue getting that word out, and Mr. Sumter did a good job on organizing it and leading that discussion. Saturday morning, I went to half of the program for the Dyslexia Association. Joan and Les Esposito have put that seminar on for 20 years, for the 20th anniversary. Well attended by a lot of teachers, very well attended. And I was very pleased to see it go on. I was very pleased to see our teachers there, including our special ed staff. It was a very good morning program. And then I also went to a session with Karen Kator, who's the Director of Educational Technology for the Department of Education for President Obama. And she talked about her program plan that was just put out last November, outlining the goal of the Education Department of President Obama over the next 5 years or 10 years. And I think we all got a summary of it, and there's also a total report behind it. But the interesting part of it was on digital learning, and what the expectation is that it's not going to be too far away where students will have some type of mobile device, whether it's an iPad or a mobile phone or iTouch, and all the books will be loaded on it. So somehow they will end up with their reading material on one of these mobile devices. But part of what I found real interesting was the discussion about the core standards, and that there is testing coming in a few years, 2 years, 3 years, where every 3rd to 11th grade student will have to be tested on the core standards in a very short window of time. And there's a thought that the only way that's going to happen is that we have more technology and we have wireless at all campuses, which we are far from having at the moment. But it's not that far away. So I think whatever emphasis we need to put on that, it needs to be, top of our thinking, at least getting our campuses wireless, because the load of having 10, 12,000 kids, students, taking a test simultaneously is almost overwhelming. But I'm sure that Dr. Hayden can work on that.
We are gearing up for it.
Yes,
So
he just attended the Q conference, so he knows.
He knows all about it. Yeah, but hearing this lady, Karen Kater, talk, she was so enthusiastic and such a great representative. And I guess, I didn't get to go, but today Arnie Duncan was talking down in Los Angeles. And I was hoping to be able to attend that, but jury duty came up, so couldn't do it. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Any other board members? Oh, Deacon?
I wanted to mention that the Wellness Council met, and that everyone should know that Wellness Day is coming up, which is going to be May 13th, although a number of schools are celebrating it in different ways. And Santa Barbara High, actually, all this week is celebrating Wellness Week, and I know you've had representatives from the nutrition department there, the chef, and Rethink Your Drink is tomorrow. So there's good things going on all the campuses regarding wellness. And I'd also just like to mention that on May 14th, the Santa Barbara Education Foundation is hosting their annual Hope Awards ceremony, and Dr. Sarvis is one of the honorees this year, and Virgil Ealings is the other one. So it'll prove to be, I think, a really nice event. I hope everyone will mark it on their calendar. It's going to be at the QAD campus. They've offered that to the Santa Barbara Education Foundation, and it's a great way to support that organization and to honor Dr. Sarvis and Dr. Ealings.
Thank you. Okay. We will move on to item C3, which is announcement of closed session action. We have no action to report out this evening from closed session. So that brings us to public comments. Do we have any public comments this evening? No public comments. It may be a first. I know, we're all in shock. Okay, that brings us to item C5, acceptance of donations.
I will move to approve with gratitude.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Item D, our consent agenda. Are there any items that board members would like to pull from the consent agenda? No? Yes?
I'd like to pull D5 and D6. Both have the district library master plans, but I don't want our librarians to have to wait till 9:45 to answer my questions, and they're not very major, so I was hoping maybe if we pull them, we could talk about them immediately after approval of the rest.
That sounds appropriate. Thank you. Are there any other items? Hearing none, do we want to entertain a motion on the consent agenda?
Move to approve the remaining items.
And go ahead.
Second.
And before you take a vote on that, I'd like to alert you to an additional attachment on D2, which is La Colina Junior High donations to Japan. And then you have a page out of D5, which is on the elementary library master plan. And as Mr. Herron noted, our librarians are here in numbers tonight to see that this gets passed. Oh, and sorry, D3 as well.
Okay, so we are not considering D5 at this time, but we are...
D5 or D6, yeah.
Right. But the other revised items, D2 and D3, are included in this vote. So we have a motion to approve the consent agenda minus items D5 and D6. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, that we can now return to items D5 and D6 in order to accommodate the librarian, so we don't have to keep you waiting all night.
First,
Mr. Herron?
First, I'd just like to say that I know a lot of time and effort goes into this, so I want to recognize you for putting that time and effort in, the fact that you're all here tonight. And by reading this, you see how valuable librarians are and librarian technicians are to our whole system. And I just have a questions that I'm sure you can't answer, but I just want to point out to the board that they are questions. On D5, on page 4, it's pointed out under discussion, development of a district policy on library funding would ensure consistency between campuses and establish a minimum funding level for basic services. And the way I read the item is that, yes, we support the libraries, but each principal does it differently. And I don't have any idea of what that inconsistency is, but there is some equity issue when you get into a couple of the other things that it would be nice if most schools had some kind of consistency as to how much we are funding the libraries. That's an important, valuable situation. On page 8, it talks about it a little bit more, and one of the things that bothers me sometimes is the library staff is attempting to make up this continued shortfall by fundraising and seeking grants. Obviously, some schools can do that better than others, and so that presents another inconsistency in providing services to our libraries. And I don't know, when you say seeking grants, is if each school does their own seeking, you seek. You seek for everybody. Okay, that was one of my questions, so you can't answer it. Okay. So it's not an inconsistency as far as grants are concerned, but fundraising might be another inconsistency between the schools. And then on page 9, that was missing from my book, and I don't know if it was missing from your books or not, but now we have it, and the thing that I looked at that I thought was inconsistent was the average copyright date, where Franklin is 1990, which is only 3 years less than the rest of than the average. But there's about 5 schools that are less than the average and 5 that are a little bit above the average. But I'd be curious to know why Franklin is so far behind on their average copyright date.
To go to the,
Yes.
Yeah, Nancy, would you come up? This is Nancy Tobin, who coordinates our library services and is our trainer at the elementary level.
If you look at how many books each school has, you see Franklin has a lot, and I think part of the older average copyright date is because I need to weed more there. There's a lot of old books on those shelves that I'm actually going through and pulling. So, you know, there's some sort of happy medium between how many books and the age of the books, and I'm just dealing with a history from previous years of what is on the shelves, and with the money I have, just getting as many books as I can.
Okay. As long as you're up, since the funding comes from Tier 3, and that's not a good place for funding to come from these days.
Right.
How are the principals reacting to giving up money for libraries versus all the other things on their plate?
They do the best they can.
Okay. How big is the discrepancy between schools?
It's a pretty large discrepancy. I don't have the numbers all in my head, but it ranges from below 1,000 to maybe 3,000 for the school, but then keep in mind there's different school sizes.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I have on D5.
Thank you.
There might be something on D6, though.
Do we have a motion on D5?
I'll move that we approve D5.
second?
Okay. Any further discussion? Ms. Deacon?
Can I just add to Mr. Herron's comment about homing in on that discussion of some equity of dispersal of funds across the sites? I know some sites are maybe more able to fundraise than others, but it seems to me that the formula of a dollar amount per student is a way to go, and I know that the elementary recommended at a minimum $5, secondaries recommending in $12 per student for library resources. So there's a discrepancy there as well. But and I know we're looking for money that we don't necessarily have. But once we do, again, I would really like to see a policy that addresses this equity issue as well.
And I think Nancy alluded to it in the plan. The first several years when I was in charge of elementary and the money was much better, we automatically, before the sites even got their allocations, we took off, in their budget, it said library books, and we took it right out of that block grant. And so they had that funding to use. Since then, and during the flexibility time, as you all know, it's just, not only been reduced tremendously, but all kinds of other things have been reduced, so they're having to use that money for basic items. There's also the fact that at different schools, it's completely different communities, and some of them have traditions of buying, supplying birthday, when their child has a birthday, they buy a book for the library, or they have different kinds of, the book fair is a huge thing at some schools and not so large at other schools, depending on the population and the ability to buy a lot of books and all, and to fundraise. So it's just so different across our schools. And as Nancy said, they try as much as they can. Every single principal highly values the library, and they're just limited right now. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah, part of my reason for pointing this out is that they go to the trouble of putting together a plan, and in it they say, here's something that would be nice. I want them to know that we do see it and recognize it, and we'll try to do what we can do, just so you know that it does get read.
Okay, on to item D6. Are you ready to vote on this one, or?
We can vote on that.
Okay,
Yeah, we made a motion in a second.
on item D6, I'm sorry.
On D5.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Item D5, we have a motion on the floor that we have not voted on? Okay, so all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, now we can go on to item D6.
Yeah, my only question on D6 is on page 9, and Mrs. Deacon alluded to it, with, they talk about annual funding needs, and they recommend $12 for junior high schools per ADA and $15 for high schools. And my question is, what are you getting now? If that's your proposal, that you think this is what you would need, what are you getting?
Hi, I'm Ursula Farrell, librarian at GV. Our principals have, as in the elementary schools, have tried very hard to allocate this amount and have been successful so far. And the reason, you're probably wondering, and Mrs. Deacon, you mentioned that the elementary $5 and $12 for junior high and $15 for high school. This amount also includes, for junior high and high school, one of the standards is that students have databases with e-books and other reliable resources, and we buy that out of that money too. It's about a half a book a student a year.
So there is no policy that you get $12 and $15. The principals have just done that voluntarily,
That's correct.
but that's not taking place in the elementary district. They're not.
I can't,
Okay.
I don't know what happens at the elementary, but as Nancy mentioned, the principals are very supportive and understand that a library needs current resources and have been good about that.
Good, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'll move approval of D6.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, thank you very much to the librarians for being here and helping us to answer these questions. Okay, that brings us then to our action agenda. Our first item on the action agenda tonight is the appointment of members to the Measure Q 2010 and Measure R 2010 Bond Citizens Oversight Committees.
Well, Board, we have a number of other names in front of you, people who have applied to be on the committees, and we have Barbara Kiani here, who's our coordinator for administrative services and communications, to speak to this.
Okay, you have a list in your packet showing the positions or the seats that we have already filled on the Measures Q and R committees, and right now we are short one person for the Measure Q, the secondary bond oversight committee, and we are short 3 individuals for the Measure R committee. And I've given you the names of those who have stepped forward. We have a nice group of people who have express their willingness to serve on one or more committees. Unfortunately, we don't have one that's specifically from the Taxpayers Association, but we do have a tax preparer. So that was something that we did check with legal counsel, and he said that's that's another option.
Okay, board members? Ms. Deacon?
Can we have more than, we can have more than 7, can't we?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
As long as it's an odd number.
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay, well, I don't know how we want to do this. I actually took a stab at placing people, given the numbers and people who are willing to serve on alternate committees, including the Measure H committee. So if you'd like, I could lay that out. And then
Sure.
Jill could-
Are other board members ready to hear that? Yes, okay.
So on Measure Q, we already have 6 people. I was going to suggest the 7th would be Edward Rollins, and then Corolla Nicholson was willing to serve on Measure R, so she could be one of those members.
Which category would that
Oh,
be?
let's see. I don't think I actually made that choice. Oh, for Rollins, parent plus PTA.
We have someone selected. Francine Graves is filling that.
Right. Does
Okay.
it matter if we have more
So-
than one person? I mean, you could also just be parent or community. I mean, you're going to have duplicates.
So
in
you want
multiple
to have
categories.
more than, in other words, right now, our opening is for that taxpayer seat, so we could put Mr. Rollins in there if you wish, although we do have 2 people who have those qualifications for that committee, who would be, either one of them would be willing to serve.
Right. I guess, well, we'll start to have our discussion now. He looked like a strong candidate to me. All the others, for the most part, were willing to serve on other committees. This was the only one that he was, I believe, indicated a willingness to serve in. Is that right?
Correct. He sent his application with just that information. I did not call and ask him if he would be willing to move over to one, for example, H. He could conceivably be a candidate for that one as well.
I guess just following on Mrs. Deacon's question, though, or point, we need to have a taxpayer association or taxpayer. I mean, Ms. Nicholson and Ms. Cheney aren't truly bona fide members of a tax association, and so you've kind of created this tax preparer, but do you really need us to pick somebody from one of those 2 to fill that spot? And then if we wanted to put Mr. Rollins on, we would do that in addition and add a 9th person?
Well, what legal has told me was that we could have someone else who is not identified in that committee. If we don't have candidates, that we can put someone else, a parent, whomever, in that spot for that time period, and then we go back when that term is up, and then look for someone who does have those qualifications. But you do have 2 candidates who do meet that, and I did check with their credentials with our legal counsel to say, you know, because there's some descriptors that I didn't recognize, and so he said they're fine. That's exactly, they both meet the requirements, so, for being a tax preparer. So again, legal has said, yes, we can put someone in that position, but that was under the impression that there wasn't a candidate available to put in that position.
Okay,
So again, I didn't check that scenario with him.
I see. But I mean, it sounds like the best idea would probably be to put one of those 2 women in, and then if we also want to put Mr. Rollins in, we could do that, but we would need to add one more person.
Exactly.
So we would be picking 3 people from this list.
Correct.
Which I think would be fine.
That was the board's call.
That works for me.
Okay, so we'll go for 3 people, include, so
Well,
then
I'd like to comment on that.
Okay,
How
Sure.
easy is it to get a quorum at those 2, H9? To make it just that you need that many more to have a quorum doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
It's very difficult to get a quorum.
Yeah, so to go to 9 and you've got to have 5 people, you're just making it harder for the committee to operate.
Are you making it harder, or are you making it easier?
You know, trying to get 5 out of 9.
Yeah, I think it's, oh, you're saying because there's more people
There's
on
more
the
people
committee,
on the
there's more
committee,
who might
so-
attend.
I don't know that it would be any different.
I know that for parcel tax measures, we've had particular difficulty in the oversight committees in achieving quorums. In the Measure V Oversight Committee, there were a number of times when we had great difficulty reaching a quorum. Of course, we had a committee of 21 or something like that. I mean, we just had a huge committee.
What is the number of people who serve on the parcel tax committees?
7.
7, okay.
What about the number of people who have to resign from the committee? Is that high?
It's,
Throughout the process
there are a couple of
from
committee
H9?
members who have finished their terms and who have not
Well, I guess my question is, because if we have a lot of turnover, it might be in our best interest to have 9 instead of 7,
Or
because
at least
that.
start out with 9.
Start out with 9, because should someone have to leave and can't come?
We didn't actually have that happen. What happened is, at the end of the 1 year, we had some people that left because the Q&R got passed, so H&I, well, actually, it was 2 years. Yeah, at the end of this year, because it was confusing, given the timing we started, because they had 1-year terms and 2-year terms. But we never had a problem with someone actually dropping out. That could easily happen, though.
Well, I'd still like to stay with the 9. I mean, I hate to turn away qualified people who express a willingness to serve, and I know that means we'd need to find one more, but hopefully that wouldn't be that difficult to do.
Well, in that category, at that particular group, you see that you have several names to choose from, so you have a good selection there of individuals who indicated an interest.
But to get to 7 in R, we have to take some of those people from Q, right?
Possibly.
I think we do.
Did we decide between the 2 individuals in the Taxpayers Association, which would
No.
go?
Oh,
not
so we're
yet.
looking at Ms. Nicholson and Ms. Cheney?
Correct.
I would suggest Ms. Cheney, because Ms. Nicholson is a Peabody parent, and I think it would be nice to have a Peabody parent on the elementary committee.
Okay.
So that would be my suggestion, that we put her down in R and put Ms. Cheney, Mr. Rollins, and then a third. I would suggest, I did see Linda Sterling on the list, and the technicality that she's not a Santa Barbara district employee, she's a Peabody teacher.
She's a Peabody employee.
But Peabody gets money from
That's why
this.
her
yeah.
name was put on the secondary list as opposed to the elementary, and I ran that one by legal as well. So, and she said she would be willing to serve, but that was something that we just wanted to, even though there may not be a conflict, we just wanted to make sure that we avoided that at all costs, even the appearance of it.
Yeah. She would be, I mean, she looks like a fine applicant, but just because of that connection, she would probably be lower on my list of who to bring in. Ann Fitzgerald, I noticed on her application, she just wrote Adams, but she's also a Santa Barbara High School parent.
Correct. The application you saw was her original one. She said I could resubmit that she did have a child at Santa Barbara High.
And Val
Nerona?
Nerona,
DP.
he's at DP. I'm just trying to look at balance here. DP.
How many
I
openings,
just- go ahead.
how many openings will we have on the Measure H committee when people move from it to Measure Q?
Oh, I didn't bring that with me, but there will be, I believe there's 2 that are coming off of Measure I, and 1 or 2 off of R that are, again, have moved over. I'm sorry, Mark Ingles?
Mark Ingalls would be one, I know.
Yeah.
Going from H to Q.
I don't recognize another person on this list.
But there are others going off that aren't transferring over.
Brian Robinson,
He's-
and also, he's on Measure R, you've already selected him. And then there was another person, I'm blocking on her name, that has turned in her resignation. And those will be coming to the board so that you officially have the resignations that they have submitted or are submitting.
That's Lynn
Oh,
Rodriguez.
Lynn Rodriguez, and there's one more.
I don't
So
remember who. Pam.
Pam
Denise.
Denise, that's right. So we do have about, on those 2 committees, we'll have probably about 4 openings.
Yeah, and we do have other resignations. Robert Gorman.
I think that I would suggest another woman on that committee.
On Q?
On Q.
Okay.
In which case that would mean Ann Fitzgerald.
So, just to be clear, are you then suggesting that Theresa Cheney,
Because Theresa Cheney would already be, Theresa Cheney would be the
The seventh,
taxpayer, 7th. So number 8 and 9.
would be
add
Rollins
Rollins and Fitzgerald.
I'll second
So
that.
I was just going to suggest that we look at how we would accommodate or the Measure R committee before we officially vote on the queue, in case we need to shift them around a little bit. So let's look at what we think we will do with Measure R, and then we'll come back to queue and vote on it. We were saying we would have Ms. Nicholson.
Correct.
And do we have another suggestion?
I thought Lucille Boss was an interesting candidate. She's a young woman with a lot of interesting experience as a community member. That would be number 6.
Yeah, I had thought Nicholson, Boss, and Cheney. I mean, the reason with not putting Fitzgerald there is that, originally we didn't want 2 members from one school, although Measure Q has that all over the place. So I don't know if that really is too much of concern if you have a Peabody parent and a Harding parent and a Washington parent on there, and then 2 from Adams. Because I see that Ms. Cheney only wants to serve on one of the committees, so if we've put her up at Santa Barbara High, then we really don't have a choice except for to pick Ms. Fitzgerald. So Nicholson,
Mrs. Cheney said both.
Well, I thought we had put
either. Ms. Cheney's willing to serve on either Measure
yes.
Q or R, but not both at the same time.
No, right.
I thought we had put Ms. Fitzgerald in the queue.
Right, that would mean, that's why, Mrs. Cordero, you had the brilliant insight of
So you're saying
R.
let's shift
This would
Ms.
shift
Fitzgerald
Q, taking
from
her
Q
out.
to R?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have Nicholson and Fitzgerald for R, correct?
And Boss.
And Voss, okay. So that would fill that committee.
So we still need one more for,
And that puts R at 7.
yeah.
Correct.
Okay, and so we're trying to get to 9 on Q?
Oh,
So there's Andy.
I do want to,
Barra.
bring up one other thing. We got email from Ms. Adams about,
There was no application that came in.
she didn't send an application.
Nope.
We all got that email from Denise Adams applying for, wasn't it for Measure Q?
I thought it was someone that was recommending that she be on it, but it was not from
about
her
the process.
himself.
But she did not turn in an actual
I
application.
did not receive anything from her.
Okay.
Yeah, I really think we need to go with the people we have applications for, because it would be, I think, inappropriate to appoint someone over somebody who has submitted an application.
So it becomes Mr. Nerona or Mr. Barrett?
You do have different schools represented. Mr. Nerona is Dos Pueblos, and Mr. Barrett is a parent at Santa Barbara High and La Colina.
And they're both, I noticed that both of them are willing to serve on Measure H.
Correct.
The committee, so presumably it's, and we'll need them, so it's kind of 6 to 1, half dozen the other.
Well, Nerona, I'm trying to remember his school affiliations.
Dos
He's
Pueblos.
DP.
Oh, that's right, Dos Pueblos. And are any of the previous appointees from Dos Pueblos?
Mr. Guareña.
Oh, what idea?
He's been a parent there. I think he's got a student at middle college right now.
Yeah, he's not listed on the
But his-
checklist as a parent there.
His,
I
his,
think his son graduated, actually.
I thought he graduated.
from middle college?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he did.
His, yeah.
Yeah,
And his
so-
wife does work at Dos Pueblos.
Because we do already,
But we also have Santa Barbara High School now. I mean, so they're both.
yeah,
Because Roland's at Santa Barbara High School. So we would have two. We don't have La Colina.
Well, that we know of. Sometimes I'm noticing parents only put one of the
Yeah.
the schools down. But maybe it would be better to put Mr. Norona on this,
On the Measure Q,
on the Measure Q.
and
then-
Mr. Bard on Measure.
That's
Did
what I
he
was
apply
thinking,
for
too.
Measure H, though? Did he say?
He said he would be willing
Yes,
to
yeah.
serve.
At
Oh,
the
that's
top of
right,
the
at the top.
application.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to go with Ms. Cheney for the tax preparer, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Mr. Nerona for the community? Or, wait a minute, no. Actually,
You can put him in
Oh,
any
so we're gonna-
category, multiple categories.
okay, so we will put him
Well,
on.
you have, excuse me, you have to put one in a 2-year category, I think, and one in a 1-year category to make the,
Yeah, we
Okay.
have 4 2-years. The way the bylaws are structured, there was 4 2-years and 3 1-year positions. So now that we're going to change
should
and
be,
add
I
2
think,
extra.
should be 5 2-year and 4 1-year.
Well, Ms. Cheney will be in a 2-year, right?
Correct?
So I didn't catch that. What do you need? Do you need another,
A 1-year and a
I-
2-year.
a 1-year and a 2-year? Why don't we put Mr. Norona in under business for 2 years? And Ms. Fitzgerald in the parent for 1 year.
Well, I think we're looking at Rollins and Nerona.
So I didn't mean Fitzgerald. I meant
Rollins.
Rollins.
Under a parent.
Under
Parent or
parent for 1
community
year?
member, yeah.
Okay. I have Mr. Rollins as a parent for 1 year, Mr. Nerona as a business person for 2 years, and Ms. Cheney, a tax preparer for 2 years. That works.
Okay, that sound good? Okay, and then for Measure R, we have
Ms. Nicholson?
Ms. Nicholson for a 2-year. We have Ms. Boss would be
1 year.
for the 1 year,
Community member, correct?
yes.
Okay.
And Ms. Fitzgerald would be,
We can put her in the senior citizen seat for the 2-year period, because we don't have someone there. She'll
be thrilled.
Just a designation on the chair.
Is that like getting an AARP card?
Well, she's already a parent plus PTA, which is 2 years also, right?
Correct.
Is she in that box? That might be more appropriate.
Well, it's just,
but we need to fill another, one of the seats.
the senior
With someone
citizen,
who's not a
we don't
senior?
have, yeah, we can, we can pull from the whole pool.
Okay, I understood that piece, I'm just not sure. What's the point in designating them that when they fall into another category legitimately that's also
Okay,
a
then we can-
2-year slot?
Well, I assume that there's no problem with that, and we'll just address the
Okay.
letter accordingly. That should be fine.
Okay. Okay, so then, shall we vote on this whole slate as one motion?
So you're saying we don't have to name a senior citizen representative? We don't have to fill that slot with somebody?
We haven't had any applicants.
No, I know that, but do we still have to fill it with somebody?
Well, technically, I was told that the seat could be filled by someone from any other designation.
Okay,
So
you say could be, but are we obligated to fill it with somebody?
you're obligated to to come up with 7 seats, so yes, you would be obligated to fill that chair, but it does not have to be by a senior
Yeah,
citizen.
but do we have to designate one of these people to fill that chair?
By our bylaws, we were to have a representative in each of these areas.
Yeah.
So we should, it sounds like we should really say that Ms. Fitzgerald is
And we can
representing.
explain that we
Yeah.
do not have someone in that seat, and that,
And she would have to, if we found somebody in 2 years who is a senior citizen, she couldn't run for that seat again.
correct.
Okay.
She could serve another term in another capacity, or another designation, how's that,
apply
or
for another
affiliation.
designation.
I will move that we appoint the nominees that we listed to the Measures Q 2010 and Measures R 2010 Bond Citizens Oversight Committees.
Great. Do I hear a second?
I will second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
So which one is the senior citizen in Measure R?
Ms. Fitzgerald.
Ms.
Should
Fitzgerald,
be
Thank you.
Fitzgerald.
thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to item E2, the adoption of the amended resolution number 2010/11-43 regarding the reduction of the number of certificated employees due to a reduction in particular kinds of service.
I
And
know that we're running behind at this point, Board. These reductions are in response to the Board's direction to achieve parity between the three comprehensive high schools. We did notice these individuals prior to March 15 as required, and we did so based on the Board's decision. You also have a revised resolution that shows a difference in the numbers. And Ann Peak is here to answer any questions. Ann Peak is our personnel analyst for certificated employees.
Thank you. Ms. Peak, did you want to make any comments before we discuss this?
No, I don't believe so. Dr. Sarvis pretty much summarized
Okay.
everything that I was going to say, which I greatly appreciate. So.
Okay, board members, do we have any burning questions that we need to ask, or are we ready to move forward?
I'll move that we adopt the amended resolution number 2010/11-43 regarding the reduction of the number of certificated employees due to a reduction in particular kinds of services.
Second.
Okay, and all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries, sadly,
Yeah.
5-0. We hope that we can do other things, but unfortunately, we have to take this action. So thank you. Okay, and thank you, board members, for moving quickly on that one. Item E3, approval of the Leaseback construction delivery method and pre-construction services agreement with Shock Contracting Corporation for the Santa Barbara High School kitchen renovation project.
Board, this is one of our primary items for Measure Q. We wanted to move ahead on it as quickly as possible, and that's why we're asking you to proceed with the leaseback. Dave Hetjunk, our Director of Facilities and Operations, can answer any questions on this.
Do you want to come up to the podium, Mr. Hetyak? I don't know if we have questions, but Ms. Deacon, did you have a question?
My first question was, I wanted to make sure this includes the culinary arts classroom.
It does. Yes, we did not receive the matching state funding, but we're proceeding, unless someone tells us differently, like the board, with the plans pretty much as specified. We are going to try and reduce some of the storage space because it's not going to be used so much as a central kitchen. And by reducing some of that storage space, we'll be able to house more of the serving carts that would normally be stored in the actually serving area, to store them in the kitchen to give more room to the school during the day in the actual cafeteria eating space for the students. That's about the only change that would be made from the plans you've seen previously.
And you mentioned other successful projects that Shock Construction has done. Could you just identify those?
They were the contractor on the waterproofing project. They were the contractor the first time when we awarded the kitchen construction. They were very cooperative when we had to close that project, when we found all the extensive damage. They could have asked for more than they received by law, they were entitled to their full profit that they would have earned on the job had they completed the job. They did not ask for all of that. They only asked for the profit on the work that they had completed. And they've been very cooperative, and they're a great contractor. We have a lot of great contractors around. They're one of them.
Ms. Parker?
Couple questions. One is, if we go ahead and approve this pre-construction services agreement for the Leaseback, we'll have two out. When do you anticipate that we would actually have contracts ready for there's the Dos Pueblos HVAC?
Where Carl Mayrose is moving as fast as possible on these with the architects, and it's basically when we get DSA approval. We are currently attempting to obtain DSA approval on the Dos Pueblos project. The same thing on the San Marcos project. We have approval of the plans, but we did not have approval of the portable placements for temporary or permanent that have to be moved in order to accomplish that project. So we're working that approval through the Division of State Architect as we speak. This plan basically has approval. We'll go back in with a change order with DSA for moving a few things or eliminating a few things as far as storage and freezer space, but nothing major or structural that would prevent the delay. We'd hope to get this project started sometime this summer and have the kitchen available for use in the fall of 2012.
That was my second question. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Herron?
Yeah. A couple questions. Will we be doing a validation action in this case?
We do need to pick one project and do a validation action. Currently, we had planned to do that for the Matt Academy. However, the Matt Academy schedule is getting tight. I'd like to look at this schedule, and if we have time to do the validation on this project instead and still bring it in on time for using at the beginning of the 2012 school year, I may come back and recommend that we do it on this project instead of the Matt Academy.
And Mr.
But I think we do need to do it for at least one project to set the precedent.
And Mr. Schock is the contractor for the Matt Academy? The Schock Construction Company?
Yes.
And how's that going so far with them?
The plan, it's going great.
Have they performed?
Currently what we are is we're in the plan development. So they're working with the district and the architect in developing the plans and specifications. The package that went down to DSA originally to get the approval for the state matching funds is the completed project that we put out to bid is going to look different than that. We have additional space and we have to do some more detailing. We did what we needed to do to get the funds. Now we're going to have to go back and get a secondary approval because we're changing the scope from what was originally intended. Originally intended was redoing the additional space. Then the next phase of that was to go into the area where La Cuesta used to be, and now it looks like we may be able to grab some additional space besides where La Cuesta was, which would make the classrooms a little bit larger and better for them to function.
So currently, the Matt Academy, part of that approval was a validation action.
We were going to do the validation with the Matt Academy. We haven't yet.
And now you're saying that maybe there's going to be a time crunch, and so you may have to change that recommendation?
Well, that'll be a board decision. I mean, we'll come back to the board with a recommendation based on when the projects can be finished, looking at when we want them finished, and then back the schedule up and see which one is best for validation. But we should do one of these two, yes.
Okay. The Schrock Construction Company did the repairs of San Barbara High School, and it was a lot of change orders. This whole process is supposed to eliminate change orders. Are they capable of doing that without a lot of change orders?
Well, none of those change orders at Santa Barbara High School were due to the contractor. They were all due to DSA and the discovery that those light wells did not have a foundation, and DSA insisting that the structure of those light wells be independently designed and not put any pressure on the existing building like you would normally do when you build a light well. So that was beyond the contractors and the district's control.
But if that was a lease-back situation, would we have discovered a lot of that in the process?
Something like that that's underground you wouldn't discover till you got there. And that would be an extra, unfortunately.
Well, speaking for myself, I want to see a validation action on something.
Okay,
Okay.
I agree.
Ms. Deacon, are we ready to make a motion?
I'm going to make a motion. I'm going to move to approve the leaseback construction delivery method and pre-construction services agreement with Shock Contracting Corporation for the Santa Barbara High School kitchen renovation project and the Culinary Arts classroom.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hetyoung. Okay, that brings us to the approval of board action on student discipline case numbers 10/11-37, 10/11-38, 10/11-39, 10/11-40, and 10/11-41. Board members, are we ready with motions on these?
I'll go ahead. And in case number 10/11-37, I will move to approve the administrative hearing panel recommendation for 1 calendar year suspended expulsion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 5-0.
In case 10/11-38, I will move to approve the stipulated 1 school year agreement.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
That's an expulsion agreement, right? Or
That's a stipulated agreement, yes, for an
for an
expulsion.
expulsion, thank you. Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
In case 10/11-39, I will move to approve the administrative hearing panel recommendation for 1 school year expulsion.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
In case 10/11-40, move to approve the administrative hearing panel recommendation for 1 school year expulsion.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
And in case 10/11-41, move to approve the recommendation of the administrative hearing panel for 1 school year suspended expulsion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, and I just want to take a second to say that in open session, we move through these very quickly. We have a great deal of discussion about them in closed session, so I want people to understand we have had a lot of discussion on these cases before we make the decision. Okay, so that takes us to item F1 to our conference agenda, an update on the secondary district's honors coursework plan.
And Associate Superintendent Robin Swaski will introduce this.
Okay, here we go. The last time we talked about the honors coursework plan was this last October, when we brought forward some of the draft survey questions that we were presenting to students. And Dr. Davis Hayden and Sandy Robertson are here to present the data. I will say that I think you know that we're following up this spring with student surveys, parent surveys, so that we'll have the full component of feedback. Sandy's also going to talk a little bit about the education, professional development, and education for parents, and you should have a handout on that. In looking through the slides there, it's a sample, it's not all of them. We also have backup data. Dr. Hayden will explain some of that will give you more information on the breakdown between the responses with Latino students versus white students, GATE-identified students versus non-GATE identified. When I first looked at the data, I had almost more questions than answers to the questions I had previously. And we had a nice discussion, the three of us. We also, Dr. Hayden also shared some of the slides with some of our parent partners in this that have been working with us all along through the honors coursework plan development, and had a nice discourse over that. And he may share some of that, but we're anxious to hear what your questions are. So I'm going to turn it over to the two of them, and they'll explain the slides.
Okay, and is this on? Is it on? Do you hear me?
Chris, can you let us know if that's, okay, it's on.
Okay. So I'll go through some of the data, and Sandy is here because she was the one who administered the survey, and so she has a lot more information about how it actually was conducted at the school sites. So, and I know that several of you have seen, I think you've all seen the survey. I know I sent it to Susan just recently again, so I hope you're familiar with the survey. So the first part of this is the honors classes. And so why don't you, Sandy, explain how the honors surveys were delivered?
Okay, I communicated via email with principals and assistant principals of each of the secondary schools and asked them to arrange with their English teachers to take their students to the computer lab and take the survey. And we got great cooperation on that. When you see a slide where there's greater or lesser numbers of students at a particular school, it was due to the fact that we had some scheduling issues. We conducted the survey right before winter break in December, and in a couple of cases we came back in January to try to finish up. But our librarians were here earlier. The libraries and the computer labs were very booked with research projects, so we didn't get all of the kids that we wanted to complete the survey. But as Robin said, we think we took a good temperature of both the honors classes and the CP classes.
And so you can see here, this is the first slide, and you can see the numbers. This is the honors survey, and we had quite good numbers in terms of the total number of students. Close to around 1,000 students took the survey. So that feels pretty good to me, and you can see the La Cumbre had scheduling problems, and I suppose Goleta Valley must have too. So there are slight differences in the numbers, but even Goleta Valley had, 75 or so students. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a sizable number, and it's a decent survey in terms of getting feedback.
Did we point out that this was 7th grade and 9th grade only?
This shows the composition of the students in the honors classes, and we had around 70% were GATE students, and 10% said no, and 20% did not know. I suspect they probably split evenly, but I don't know for sure. Later on, when we look at the college prep, I actually ran the numbers through areas, but I didn't run these through areas because there's so many that were GATE. It's predominantly GATE students in these honors classes. This is the response by ethnicity, and this is kind of difficult because we have a problem with how data is collected on ethnicity these days. The Latino is not an ethnicity any longer. It used to be in our student information system. And so people indicate whether they're ethnicity Latino or not, and then they indicate their racial identification, which Latino is not part of it. So we get a lot of overlap here because most Latinos are indicating that they're Caucasians. So it really makes the reporting of these statistics much more difficult these days. Sure.
I'm sorry, can I just ask you a quick question on that one? So this means that this is the ethnicity that the student is claiming?
Yes.
Later, when we referred to the college prep classes?
Yes.
The heading on it is college prep students' responses to ethnicity. Is that the same thing?
Yes, I probably, I might have changed the headings when I did them separately. I did the honors, it was one survey, and I put the titles in for it. I may have made slightly different titles.
Okay,
For them.
I just wasn't sure if they were identifying the same thing. Okay, thank you. Oh, Ms. Deacon,
Can we
question?
just go back to that last slide? Because actually that's pretty important information. And so you're basically saying we don't know the number of Latinos that are also captured in that Caucasian column?
No, we do not.
So that's, we want to know that, right?
Yeah, well, we can't get it. I mean, we can, but it's not really accurate. It's the complication of the way that the surveys are now collected.
And I understand why. I'm just, it's a frustration. I mean, if part of our goal was to increase Latino participation in these classes, and yet we don't have a valid measurement of whether there is an increase or not.
It's a complicated measurement, and one of the unfortunate things is that many students are now indicating multiracial, which complicates it even further. That did not used to be an option.
So how do we gauge success?
It's going to be complicated.
Can I ask another related question, and that is, would there be, do you think that there would be students in the Caucasian category who are Latino, or who also would identify themselves as Latino, who are not included in the Latino category?
Yes,
Okay, so all the Latinos would not be in the Latino category?
that's a possibility,
Okay.
yes.
Okay,
Because they might go into the multiracial.
okay.
Do you have an estimation? I mean, is it just anecdotal, or do you know a range of what percentage might, I mean, because 54 to 16% is pretty significant, but if we're only talking about 2% within the Caucasian that identify as Latino,
Okay, well, I
still
can give you an estimate. Probably about more than half of this probably are going to be Latino. So the Latino population probably goes up to maybe 20 or 22, which is traditionally what we've had in the past when we didn't have this new racial ethnicity reporting. So I'm assuming that we probably are running the same place we ran before, which is around 22% being Latino. That's my best guess for it.
And it sounds like the survey tool is what doesn't allow us to capture this. Is there a way to change the tool?
Part of the issue here is that this is students self-reporting. So if we looked at their CUME files and analyzed which of the students in these classes were in our school records, either multiracial or Latino, we might have different numbers. Student self-reporting can be very interesting, and it can also cause us some headaches, as we're seeing here. So I don't know if there's a way to check that.
Even if we pulled the data from Aries, it would come out complicated like this. It's the way the federal government is collecting the data these days.
Yes, it's not just the GATE survey that we just put out, or the honors and college prep survey. We're using the same designations as the students now use, or the CalPads are reporting to the government. So it's just switched over recently, so it is very complicated to get exact numbers or percentages.
You're just not going to get the numbers the way you're used to getting the numbers. They've changed. And so we have to change how we're reporting them. It's a headache for all of us.
But
Ms. Parker?
it sounds to me like it's just, would be very difficult for us to compare to the past. But going into the future, it may be somewhat more relevant to look at, what these numbers look like in 11-12 as compared to 10-11.
I would love to say yes to that. But the
it's still
problem with
complicated.
saying yes to that is that we still have a lot of race ethnicity that has not been filled in by our school sites because of the slowness in students and parents responding to this new form. So as we go forward, we will get more and more students to comply with filling in their ethnicity, race questions. So these numbers will change again. And then another part of that that's complicated is that we're finding more and more students choosing the multiracial. So that's also going to probably become a much more widely used choice. So the long answer, and unfortunately, I should have given you a short answer, which is no, but the long answer is that no, we will not be able to.
Well, I guess what I'm hearing is almost a conflation of two things, which is Aries, which I think, it's like the census data, looking at that, yeah, I think I could see that as a continuing issue, but if the students are self-reporting for this survey, isn't that a little bit simpler than that Aries form? And again, it's going to be based on student perception, but at least it won't have that whole complication of race versus ethnicity.
You may be correct. I don't know.
I mean, we already have race versus ethnicity already on here.
Yes, we do, because we have Latino up there, and it's
Yeah.
an ethnicity count, not a race.
Right. So my question is that our concern, our interest is in trying to make sure that our higher level classes are attracting greater numbers of underrepresented students. Our interest is not so much in identifying or, worrying about how students identify themselves in terms of their ethnicity. We just want to make sure that the classes are reaching a broad spectrum and including students who have traditionally not been included in large numbers. So, given that that's our goal and that's the interest we have, do you have a recommendation of how we can measure that to see if we are succeeding in achieving it or not?
Yes and no. As you'll see later on, there are some questions that we're asking the students, and especially the college prep students, that I actually would say are indicating that we are opening up the classes and are removing the barriers. At the same time, even though we're removing the barriers, are we actually getting larger numbers into these classes? I think we're going to have to wait until next year to see if that's happening, because this is our baseline data.
Because I would be interested, if we find that we are removing the barriers, to see which groups of students are taking advantage of having those barriers removed. Are we reaching the underrepresented students or not? So that's, I think, the frustration that you might be hearing from the board is we understand that the numbers are, the categories are set up the way they're set up, but we need to figure out a way to measure whether what we're doing is working or not.
My best estimate, and it was my prediction, but looking at the data, my best estimate is that we actually have almost the same numbers of minorities or Latinos in the honors classes as we had last year in the GATE honors classes. I mean, if you combine the GATE and honors classes together, it's pretty much the same this year as it was last year. Yes.
That's huge, yeah. Although many teachers have reported to me that the makeup of their classes includes many more Latinos than in the past. And they're working hard and contributing to the classes, and they're feeling as if they're being successful. And if there are issues, the teachers are using what resources there are at the school to help those students succeed. So anecdotally, I have that information. I talk to teachers all the time. So that doesn't seem to match what we see here.
Are you talking about specifically the teachers that taught the GATE level or GATE and honors?
The ones that are teaching the honors classes this year that previously taught GATE.
GATE, okay.
Yes.
Okay. This is how students indicate they were placed in the honors classes, and by far they thought they were placed there by test scores and grades. And this data here I broke out by both GATE status and by ethnicity, and I have those backup slides. I'm going to be putting them into a board brief. And there's no difference. Whether you're Hispanic or not, or whether you're GATE or not, the numbers or the pattern is almost identical. Which, in fact, I will just state right here that I did not break any of the slides you're seeing right now up into ethnicity and GATE or not GATE status, but I have all that data, and to almost every single slide, the differences follow the same pattern. There is virtually no difference in how the Latinos responded to how the non-Latinos responded on all of these slides. And the GATE, non-GATE. So we move on to the next one. Indicated they were encouraged to sign up for honors classes, and by far parents and guardians were the ones who encouraged the kids to sign up the most, followed by teachers, and the lowest on the list was counselors. How challenging for students for their honors classes? Moderately challenging is the primary response, as you can see.
Mrs. Cordero, may I ask on this one?
Yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Parker.
Previous GATE surveys, how have students responded to how challenging their classes are?
For those board members who may not be aware, we have done for years an annual survey of the GATE program as part of our state plan. That goes out in May. We used to do it all by paper, and we've done it now electronically with Zoomerang. So this particular slide, I can compare it to the annual surveys. Moderately challenging is maybe not as high as this, but definitely moderately challenging is what we see when kids are asked about the level of rigor.
Yes. Ms. Deacon?
This is just an observation, but I suspect, as in all things, it would depend on the class you're in and the teacher you're in. So if you were to break it out that way, you might see some that were very rigorous and very challenging and others that weren't.
In fact, in the annual survey, we ask a particular question to name a particular person or aspect of the program that's most important to you, and it's interesting to see what projects or teachers come up year after year because they are engaging, they're challenging, they're fun, and so we have to ask the question that way to pinpoint, because when we ask it this way, you see we can't get the specific details.
You said, Ms. Robinson, that that in the past, the moderately challenging might have been a little bit lower.
But those were only for the GATE classes, yes.
But which categories would have been higher then? Were more students saying that it was extremely challenging, or were more students saying that it was not challenging?
I think it breaks out about the same. It's almost a bell curve of challenge that we see, that the not challenging enough or extremely challenging were always about equal, and then...
Okay. So it follows the same pattern.
It really does.
And I have a question, sorry about this last one.
I'm sorry, Ms. Limon.
You actually touched upon something. Is there a way to capture engagement, not just challenge?
I like that word, and when we revise our Zoomerang survey this spring, perhaps we'll put that. You have to define what engaging is to kids.
For the students, yeah.
So you give them kind of a pick list. The questions that we have in this survey really reflect the concern of the parent groups. They were concerned about the access to the program and closing the barriers and maintaining the level of rigor and challenge. So actually, engagement wasn't one of the categories that we thought about for this survey, but it definitely will be and has been in various forms in our annual survey in May.
Thanks.
And just to remind you, I took each one of these by themselves, broke them into ethnicity, Latino or not Latino, and broke them into GATE or not GATE, and there was very little difference in how they responded.
I'm sorry, I had another question about that, just a very, very basic question, which is, I think, with the GATE, we're kind of assuming that we would want our honors, that we would want the classes to be extremely challenging. But I'm wondering, is that accurate? Because would students identify it as, I guess my question is, when students see the choice of extremely challenging, do they interpret that to mean it's too hard for them? So does moderately challenging really mean they think it's challenging but they can do it? So what I'm trying to figure out is, do we want extremely challenging to be the choice, or do we want moderately challenging to be the choice?
Books have been written on that topic, haven't they? The zone of
proximal.
Yeah. We've discussed that. Unless we break this question down into more specifics and frame it the way you are, then we might not know. So we'd be asking kids to ask more questions and think more deeply about it. We want them to be able to do the survey in a reasonable amount of time, but we might want to, and particularly this question is so important, is moderately challenging enough? Do we want the kids to say it's more rigorous? Does more rigorous mean more homework that I have to do even though I'm not engaged in doing that homework? It's a big question, a big series of questions that we have to decide to what level of detail do we want to go into. But I think we could do maybe a better job on our annual survey of defining challenging to get at that issue of engagement, what's moderate, what's rigorous enough.
One more question for you. So I know we're slowing you down.
This is a general question. So there was an open comment section on the survey. Did you try to take that information and derive general impressions from it?
Well, you'll see a couple of slides where I did. But, I read pretty much all of the overall comments. I did not read all of the comments for some of the particular questions. I don't know if Sandy did or not. Homework was by far one of the major issues that honor students had, was that, you know, they make comments like, stop giving so much darn homework, you know, or useless homework assignments, stop it. So that was a large part of the comments, yes.
That information would be really time-consuming. You could probably mine a lot of good stuff out of that, as opposed to just these having to pick, you know, between three choices.
How they rated them overall, and excellent classes was the strongest response here, average, and very few said poor classes. That's good, encouraging, I think. Were they taught an appropriately advanced curriculum, which sort of gets to some of the questions you were asking about challenging, and most thought that they did. Some do, but very few, none do. So that's encouraging. Okay, now this is a little bit different, and I'll have Sandy talk a little bit about this too. These are, we didn't want to take all college prep students, so we limited it. And so Sandy, you want to mention?
Well, according to the honors coursework plan, we talked about one of the criteria being a pattern of advanced achievement over a couple of years on their CST scores with some teacher input. So if a student had a 380, you know, if you've looked at student data and no student performance, a student can have a 380 and be a much better student than a 380 might imply. So we wanted to look at students who were in the kind of gray area that were in CP classes and try to find out why they didn't end up in the honors classes.
That makes this a much smaller sample, and if you look at the numbers, still enough numbers, no problem with enough numbers to analyze, but quite a few less students that we looked at. And fewer schools because, well, I'll go ahead and talk about this. These students had to be pulled from classes and taken someplace. This meant a lot more scheduling problems than just going into the English classes and scheduling them in a computer room. Gate status was almost equal, and of course someone pointed out that to me and said, wait a second, you know, one of my staff members, and so we went ahead and pulled it from Aries, and in reality, for the college prep students with CSTs 380 and higher, it was 56% were not gate and 43% were gate, but still, that's pretty close. So our sample was not that far off from what it really is. Of course, there's no I don't knows in Aries. So all the I don't knows went into these columns, and I'm not, this is fine with me. Ethnicity, now we have more Latinos than Caucasians in this group. Well, with all our previous discussion. College prep's response and how students were encouraged to enroll in honors classes. And the no means that nobody encouraged them. And as with our previous slide, the counselors had the highest number of no's, and parents had the highest number of yeses, with teachers following. So it seems to be a similar pattern with our college prep students. And I broke this up by ethnicity and by, well, for this particular set of charts, I mainly only broke it up by ethnicity. And once again, there was really little difference in how Latino versus non-Latino responded to all of these questions. Reasons for not enrolling in honors classes, and most people said none of these were reasons. The highest one was more interested in activities. So they didn't go into honors classes because they interrupted their participation in activities.
Dr. Hayden, I guess I had a problem with this one, because I know obviously on a number of the slides, the kids were able to give multiple responses. But this one, you know, there were responses in every category and there weren't dramatic differences. And so it just became, I mean, they're all issues to a certain extent. I wasn't really sure if it really said why they didn't enroll in honors. You know, more interested in other activities seems sort of not that dramatic, so much higher than anything else.
And this is always a problem with survey. When you have repeated questions like this, people can just get into no, 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 or whatever. I completely agree. Challenging their courses were, and the only pattern that we see here is that the social studies courses in college prep were not challenging enough.
And I've actually, that mirrors our GATE survey too. That's kind of been a pattern, although I know from working with many colleagues over the year that social studies classes are among the more popular with a lot of students, interesting discussions. So I don't know what to make of that, but it does reflect on our annual survey as well.
Comments. So this one, I attempted to break up the comments, and you can, as you can see, not a large number of responses here, 12. So these are 11. But anyway, you can kind of get an idea of their comments. Honors classes were too much work. That's why they didn't go into them. They thought they were not allowed to be in honors classes, and I think that's one of the things that we're really working on trying to change. So I'm hoping that if we do this again, that will change considerably. There will be 0 there. But anyway, so I believe that's the end of the slides. So any further questions for me or Sandy or for Robin?
Board members, Mr. Herron?
I'm curious, Sandy, you said that this is a boomerang. No.
Zoomerang.
Zoomerang.
This was a Google survey.
Oh, Google's.
But the one that we've done with the GATE program, which we're mandated to do by the fact that we have state approval on that program, is a Zoomerang survey. Okay. And we, in that survey, we survey students, educators, and parents.
But we create all the questions.
Yes, we do.
Having heard what Mr. Cordero said, the reason for all this is, and since this is an entirely internal document trying to meet some goals we have, why would we deliberately put in questions that give us results that we can't interpret? Meaning their ethnicity. Why would we put in questions that would give us results that you stand and say we can't interpret?
I think that's a question for Dr. Hayden, because I'm not an expert in statistics.
Well, we're not saying we can't interpret them. We're saying that the interpretation is nowhere near as clear as it used to be because of the way in which the federal government has changed this, this reporting.
But for this report, why do we care about the federal government?
Well, because if we don't follow the federal government standards, then there's no way we can ever compare any of this to ARIES, our student information system. And I do believe that we want to try and parallel what's in our data system with what we're asking the students. That's my best answer for you, is that otherwise then we're really in the blind as to comparing apples to oranges when we compare these numbers to what we have in our classes.
But we have a goal of what these numbers we want to use for, and garbage in, garbage out. And if we're putting
well, I understand the garbage in. I think what we're trying to do is say that this is a baseline. It's sort of like, even though we're seeing these numbers and we're having a hard time really breaking them up the way we'd like to, the next year we'll have a much better grasp on where this is going, what the trends are. I did not choose to do this new federal system.
But you still won't be able to tell us the answer to our question. You just give it a guess.
Well, may I add to this? We'll see the same difficulty with state testing. We'll see, and then we'll want to compare the results from this spring to the results from the following spring. I mean, it's important that we do make this change. Actually, it's about time we had a multiracial identity, multi-ethnic category, because for far too long, students have wanted to choose that and didn't have it available. So we actually applaud the change.
I just wanted, I think, if I'm clear on what Mr. Heron is asking, now with the state testing, et cetera, I understand why we would need to use the state and federal guidelines for how we identify ethnicity, because that's how we get the data, that's how we can compare the data, that's how the data would be useful to us. But in this particular case, this is, as Mr. Heron pointed out, an internal survey. I would be more interested, not so much in necessarily comparing it to Aries, but comparing it to the previous set of data. So I would be willing to sort of, I guess, sacrifice the consistency with Aries and state and federal guidelines just to get a baseline for where we are, and then say, okay, next year, have we improved on that or not? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can understand you wishing to do that, but unfortunately, we already did it this way.
So you're saying there's no way to gather that data differently?
We'd have to redo the whole survey.
Oh.
And the way the students are actually in Aries in their classes, so that when, you know, we gave you a lot of data last year on who's in the classes, that's going to look just like this now, because that's how all of the system is. That's how the parents are reporting, how the students are having to report. It literally just changed this year to, started last year, but, so those classes, the makeup we gave you when we made all, you know, we had all that beginning data, it looks differently now, slightly.
I guess my concern is, and it's the same concern we already voiced, I guess, that every year, even as we look at the same numbers, so for example, the Caucasian category will perhaps change, and it'll still include Latinos who may have identified themselves as Caucasian, and the Latino category might still not include people who identify as Latino but have identified as Caucasian having to make a choice or feeling like they had to make a choice. But we won't ever know, we won't ever be able to know if that percentage stays consistent. Do you know what I mean? That we won't know if it's the same percentage of Latinos who are identifying as Caucasian. So even if we compare those numbers, we won't know that we're really comparing like figures.
Whenever you make a major change like this, that the federal government made the decision to do this, and as Brian was mentioning, there's some good reasons for it. There's a few parts of it I wish they'd done differently. But whenever you make a major change in how you code variables, you're going to have a couple years where you're just going to have some problems. And there's nothing we can really do about that. It wasn't our choice. So I think what we're going to see is a working out of this, and probably a couple years down the road it'll stabilize, and then we'll be able to look at it much more reliably. But I agree that for this year and possibly for next year, there are going to be some students and parents that change how they're listing themselves. And I don't think we can do much about that.
One thing we might do is, if I'm understanding what you're asking of us, on the annual survey that we do in May, we could ask for the ethnicity with these same categories, and then ask if you were in GATE or honors classes last year. And the ones that say no, that then identify themselves as Latino or multiracial, that might give us a different number. That might get closer to what you're asking for. Now, the people who are helping me, the two parents who are helping me with that survey, are going to be upset that I want to change my May survey, because they say, well, we're comparing apples to oranges. But as Dr. Hayden has said, I think when we undergo a major program change, as we have, we're going to have to change the survey to reflect the information that we want now.
Okay, I just have one quick last thing, and you don't have to answer this, I just want to say that I probably need to discuss this more with you individually, because I don't understand how it's ever gonna stabilize, because we're always gonna have a group of people who identify themselves in different categories, and we're not gonna be able to determine what percentage that is.
And maybe not, because this survey and the one we take in the spring has to be anonymous.
Yeah.
So we can't match.
We won't ever know, how many of those are masked in different categories.
One
So
thing-
that's my only concern, is,
One thing I think that we will have, though, going back to not the students filling in, but we know who's in the classes, and once, they don't change, every year they don't change and select their ethnicity once they're enrolled in Aries, and so those students who are in there right now, they are what they are. And so next year, as we see who's taking courses, we will be able to check, because they don't do that every year. Now, the kids, if we ask that every year, we may have that issue, but we know who's taking courses in Aries. So I think that's maybe a more stable way to evaluate.
yes, Ms. Deacon and then Ms. Lamone.
So I guess I just want to reiterate some of what we've heard here, but information is only useful if we can do something with it. And so what I would like to advocate is, and I completely understand the issue with gathering the data, that we think creatively about additional ways to get at the issue that we're really concerned about. I mean, there must be, if we put our heads together, there must be other questions we could ask that would home in on this issue. And Mrs. Robertson, you've just suggested one alternative way to do it, and I think the anecdotal information you provided, I mean, maybe we need to sit down with teachers and get a sense from them as well. I know it's hard to have confidence in anecdotal data the same way you can in hard numbers, but why not try to find an alternative way to get the answer we need, as opposed to just asking questions that we don't have confidence in the responses to.
Ms. Lamone, did you have a comment?
It's okay. It's already been said.
Okay. Ms. Barker?
Well, the one other piece that I have on, and it touches on what Mrs. Deacon was saying about using this survey, and that is, will this be shared with staff and honors teachers in particular, but also in looking for honors teachers and counselors. I know if the counselors are meeting across the district as a conversation for those students, especially the students in the 380 and above range that were not encouraged to go into honors classes. I think that's really important information for our staff to have.
Okay.
I would have expected that bar chart for counselors to be much different than what I saw. So I think there needs to be a discussion with counselors as to why is that, if that's true. They might not agree with those charts, but I'd like to know.
And I think we should just acknowledge that there is only certain questions asked, because I'm going to take a wild guess, but say that some of the reason might be because counselors may have encouraged the parents, and therefore the parents were the ones who actually motivated. So I think we're going to lose some of that in a limited number of questions that we ask, so.
Okay, so thank you very much for putting up with our myriad questions, and we apologize if we sounded like we were shooting the messenger.
Not at all. I meet with my evaluation committee periodically through this time of year as we revise and craft our survey, so I will certainly let anyone on the board knows our progress, and you're certainly invited to attend our meetings and help us craft the questions.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so we will move on then.
Do you want Sandy to explain at all the report?
Oh, the gate, do we need an explanation of any of these, or do we want a quick?
I'd only like to bring to your attention that all of the events listed here, whether they're in the category of teacher professional development, parent education events, or enrichment opportunities for students, are funded by the fundraising of the parents of our district advisory council. And we're very excited about all of these opportunities, both for teachers to grow in their understanding of the needs of the gifted, and the parent education events that we've had, and we hope to get more enrichment opportunities for students. One slide we didn't show you was asking students about which extracurricular activities they'd like to participate in, and we gave some examples, And no one wanted to do anything according to the survey. But I know from my experience that if a teacher at a particular school announced to classes, hey, we're going to have this great new club, it's called Odyssey of the Mind, and we're going to have competitions and solve problems. If a teacher at that school invited kids, because of the relationship that they had, the kids would participate. But on a survey, they're going to say, no, I'm busy doing other things. So I don't know that that's accurate. So we continue to seek enrichment opportunities for students. Anything else?
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we will move on to item F2. Report on San Marcos High School's Accelerated Academic Program for Leadership and Enrichment, the Apple project.
And
there.
Robin Sawaski, Associate Superintendent for Education, will introduce this as well.
Okay, and we have quite a group here to represent Apple, which started out last year as a pilot program at San Marcos High School. And as you can see in the write-up here, that they were a little bit disappointed in meeting their expectation for a diverse student population. They've modified their efforts this year. They're going to talk a little bit about that. And in reaching a goal of the student population in Apple mirroring the student population at San Marcos High School, which is a rich, diverse student population. So I'm going to ask Eric Nielsen, the director, and Ed Behrens, the soon-to-be principal at San Marcos High School, to come up and describe the program and share some really nice pictures. You'll enjoy these pictures. And then the students and I think some parents actually are going to share as well. Ed?
Thank you. I'm very pleased to introduce a presentation for the new Accelerated Academic Program for Leadership and Enrichment at San Marcos High School. This is a unique opportunity for students that has garnered a lot of interest and support from the community, which is extremely important for San Marcos High School. And I'd like to thank the students and the parents and teachers from the Apple program who showed up tonight, and hand it over to the director of the program, Eric Nielsen.
This is very exciting for me. I must say that spent a lot of time and effort on this program. It's just it's a pleasure to bring it to you, and I really appreciate your efforts as well. My name is Eric Nielsen. I'm actually a product of the Santa Barbara school systems. I was educated at El Camino, Mountain View, La Colina, San Marcos. Went over to San Diego State, played a little bit of baseball, came back, went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Finished off at Santa Barbara College of Law with a JD. So education's really been my life. I've been a school counselor in the district for about 14 years, spent 9 years over at Santa Barbara High School, and then about 5 years now over at San Marcos. Tonight we're going to look at where the program has been, where we are now, and then just kind of talk about the future of the program. This is, it truly has been an evolution for us in this first year. We had about 3 months to put an application together, an application process, and ended up with this glorious group of students, pretty incredible kids. This is an enrichment excursion up to El Capitan Canyon where we did a lot of team building. The Apple concept, in order to give you a background of Apple, it really starts with my belief that a rising tide really does raise all ships. I really believe that. I believe that a program that represents academic excellence at a school will have a great impact on the school site. The Apple program is a culmination of my belief in the academy model, my passion for guidance counseling and college planning, the idea that to celebrate the block schedule and what it can do to maximize college admissions and college likelihoods. The idea of kids interacting with the community in a meaningful way, and the benefit of being able to compete in a pretty competitive open enrollment school district environment. The Apple program stands on 3 pillars, and those 3 pillars mirror the college admissions process: a rigorous 4-year academic pathway, entrance examination preparation, and extracurricular involvement. And that's really turning out to be the heart of our program, leadership and enrichment activities. And as colleges, 4-year institutions particularly, look at college admissions, Those are what they're primarily looking at. As you differentiate applicant pools in more rigorous colleges or universities, this last component becomes a pretty big deal because we have a lot of kids that get A's in a lot of rigorous classes. We've got kids that have pretty solid SAT or ACT scores, but what can a student do to strategically give back to the community for the application process and be a leader in that community, and how can that student show that to the university systems? My idea was to divide the enrichment component into two different enrichment areas. And part of this was to take what I experienced as more of a PACE-based GATE program or honors sequence of coursework and really try to deepen it. And so the first thing that I did was selected some powerful teachers to teach these kids, and then connect the parents through a parent committee to the syllabus. And so the teachers have opened their doors to their classrooms, to their syllabi, and they align enrichment opportunities out in the community, Santa Barbara community, with cultural and community opportunities. Examples of that, let me just go back real quick here. That's a physics day last weekend where about 5,000 students went to Magic Mountain and did experiments. Right? You guys did experiments, right? Yeah, sure you did.
But it had everything to do with trajectories and momentum, was that it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it looks like we're anyways, okay. So other examples, though, in Dessa Mandarino's honors English class, parents sought out and found Romeo and Juliet as a play down at the Granada. Pretty neat experience for the kids. We invited the Braille Institute, the president of the Braille Institute, to speak to the kids when the students were studying Helen Keller. And they also had a visually impaired woman come in with her C&I dog and discussed ADA issues, discrimination, really deepening the curriculum. So it was a pretty powerful experience. I was lucky enough to be invited into the classroom on that occasion. We've had Martin Luther King Jr. Essay Competition award winners, Spelling Bee award winners, Math Super Bowl competitors. We've done an evening at the Natural History Museum under the physics cohort now, because kids are now in the physics classes. We were invited out to see Dr. Michael Young speak at Santa Barbara City College. Physics Day at Magic Mountain, of course, we just saw that, and eventually I'm hoping to get them out to the wind farms and look at that with Jared Bradley leading that. This is, so we have the curriculum. That was curriculum enrichment. Oops, let's go back, sorry. We have curriculum enrichment, and then the other idea is to go beyond that and go for some whole student enrichment and team building. Because I believe one of the powerful parts of an academy or a program like this is the family atmosphere and pushing these kids together. They push themselves and really building out that family component. So the team building exercises and the whole student enrichment opportunities, although not exactly exciting. This is us at the Symphony this year. There was a concert, Appalachian Spring, which combined the symphony and the ballet. We had all the kids dress up and had some pretty neat comments from the community. I think one of the comments was we lowered the average age on Sunday there by quite a bit. So the feedback from the kids was, yes, so why do we have to do that, Nielsen? But we're getting them out there and we're getting them in the community, and I think it's an important part of the process. Whole student enrichment and team building. We start the kids off with a summer orientation dinner hosted by one of the families before they even start. Team building, Santa Cruz Island. We went out to Santa Cruz Island with Jamie DeVries, who you know from Kids Helping Kids, and Jared Bradley, myself, Dessa Mandarino, took them all out there and had a great time, did a hike and a bunch of team building exercises. Fall parent socials, so the parents are getting together. We had a spring parent social just recently as well. A winter holiday formal dinner, so that was pretty neat to see them get dressed up again. Talked about Appalachian Spring, El Capitan Canyon, spent the night over there, a lot of team building there. We recently sent postcards to salute the troops, active duty military. Again, a night at the History Museum. That was kind of an enrichment opportunity for the kids, but the Natural History Museum donated space for our parents as well to have a social out there. It's very, very generous. We have our kids participating in the community service opportunities, tutorial programs, in the local communities, and this will be a pretty big feature of our program going forward. So I will come back to that in a bit, but the tutorial program is another vision that I have of how we can contribute to education in our community. There is no better way, though, to get a perspective of the experience of Apple students and what's gone on in the classroom than the teacher herself. And I do want to say a couple things about Dessa, because she is an amazing teacher as you come up here. If you get a chance to go see Dessa Mandarino teach, it is an absolute pleasure. A Crystal Apple Award winner. Dessa is powerful and energetic. She's a marathon runner, a triathlete, a mom, and she still is an incredible teacher as well. So I want Dessa to kind of give you a little perspective from the teacher's eyes.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you, Eric. Beyond the standard of summarizing reading, our Apple scholars would create thematic projects from an original metaphor. Beyond the standard of sequencing a plot, I would call them to do literary simulations on the spot, impromptu, in front of the entire class. Beyond write for homework, our scholars would write for larger audiences, real-life application, and win essay contests. Our Apple learning environment truly is a daily showcasing. It is a sharing of academic greatness. Kind of that old saying, you're only as good as your weakest link. It's absolutely not the case in the mentality in the Apple program teaching these kids. The philosophy, the belief in the classroom is, I can be as great as the greatest scholar sitting next to me. When I told my Apples that Lizzie Ochi had a perfect score on the California English Language Arts STAR test, every student sat there with that look on their face, I too can achieve that. When you have a level of greatness, and I'm thinking these four common denominators of these Apples, the highest ability, the deepest desire, countless time commitment, after school, weekends, daily preparation, they've done all the reading, they've come to the class prepared so the teacher can take the learning and the lessons to the highest level. You get products that you cannot even believe. It is thrilling to teach them every day. They go there with the belief that they want to rise to the occasion, to look at them and say, here's your challenge. They want to meet that challenge. Learning is contagious, desire to learn is contagious, and the products, their process folios, their oral finals, every day. I feel blessed to have been selected as a first cohort teacher. I believe that they need, students of this level, they need the highest challenge, and to be in an atmosphere that gives them that will be where they flourish. Thank you, scholars. Thank you.
That's right. One of the core values of the Apple program, for me personally, and the program values itself, is diversity. We believe that a diverse student program creates opportunities of whole student enrichment by having student participants with diverse perspectives. Diversity allows students to sit back and view the world through another student's glasses and creates a really powerful learning environment. We did have some successes in Apple, although I will say we were a little disappointed in some of our underrepresented numbers. I think that's been said already tonight. But I want you to look at some of these numbers here as well, in that it is a relatively diverse group, in that we had 10% Asian students, 13% Latino students, 2 French home language speaking students, 1 Romanian home language student, former ESL student in the Santa Barbara School District, so that's a success. 2 students with learning challenges, 14 boys and 16 girls. So you know, relatively diverse group, certainly not mirroring the demographic at San Marcos High School, which we would like to see at some point, but it is a diverse group. We also had some successes in that we exceeded the percentage of Latinos in all of our AP classes at San Marcos High School. We exceeded the percentage of Latino students in most of the district fully realized vocational academies as well. We also exceeded the percentage of Latinos who received international baccalaureate certificates at Dos Pueblos High School. Diversity, with that said, however, I believe that we can increase the diversity even further. In order to increase the number of underrepresented students, we've set out a diversity plan. That diversity plan is collaborating with feeder schools and principals and teachers, individual information appointments, recruitment by bilingual parents, by community liaisons at San Marcos High School and bilingual counselors, and all counselors, San Marcos Student Shadows, and then the idea of the mentorship tutorial program. Now these kids are 9th graders, but soon they will be 10th, 11th, and 12th, and they'll follow with a class of 30, 60, 90, and 120 students. The idea there is to provide mentorships and a tutorial program at the elementary school level, at the junior high school level, and even at San Marcos to really actively assist in reducing the achievement gap. I think that the power of having Eric Cervantes, starting defensive back for the San Marcos football team when he's a sophomore or a junior, or maybe a senior. When he's a senior, go down to Peabody Elementary School or Harding Elementary School and sit with a kid who has a diverse background or is underrepresented and say, I'm in the Apple program. It's a rigorous program. How can I help you? How can I be a mentor? And what can we do as a program to assist in this actively, assist in that process? So what have we done, though? That's a nice plan, but what have you done, Nielsen? Have you gone out to the classroom and done presentations in the core knowledge program at La Cumbra? Have you had a relationship established with Joanne Keynes and the wonderful things that she's doing? And the answer to both of those is yes. Administrators and myself have gone down and met with Joanne a few different times, collaborating with Rosemary Cordero to identify and target underrepresented students who are high achieving that would be a good fit for the Apple program and encouraging those students to apply. Collaborating with David Ortiz at La Colina, who sent us a list of kids who he believes are high achieving underrepresented students, and targeting those kids and seeking them out and giving them the information about the application process. Parent information nights, a bunch of parent information nights at La Cumbra, both at San Marcos and then in the homes of some of the community, and then information presented at 8th grade parent night. Other recruitment efforts, we've had a direct mailer go out to every single student in the San Marcos attendance area in both English and Spanish. We have a direct mailer going out to high achieving students that are identified by La Colina to kind of follow up. We have student shadows where students are coming in and shadowing our Apple kids. Have a lot of student shadows. Recently, Carol Flores, one of our parents, did a television spot on Spanish television. It was about a minute spot, and we sent it out to Spanish-speaking parents. We have an active parent recruitment basis for diverse students that are bringing in Spanish-speaking parents to the office, and we're doing individual appointments. Elementary school principals, we went down and spoke with Sally Kingston at Harding Elementary School, have had discussions with the Bauer Foundation, and then just traditional media outlets with Newshawk article. I might have sent that to y'all a little while ago. Ed Hatt gave us some publicity and the website and the Apple website as well. So we're attempting to make sure that there is a large applicant pool of underrepresented students. Parent involvement, to me, equals program success and really equals student success. In my 14 years as a guidance counselor, it's become very clear that where you have an involved parent, you have successful students. Apple is built around parent participation, bringing parents to the school, into the classroom, and participating in opportunities and providing opportunities of student, parent, and school connectedness. Apple parents participate in various ways. We've established, with a little law background, we decided to do a 501c3, so we have an established 501c nonprofit to support the program. Myself, Jody Dolan-Holhouse, who is a CFO, an accountant in town. Mark Fleischman is an attorney in town. Chris Pizanat is a director of development at UCSB. Mike Cregan and Matt Fay, both are CEOs of companies in town. And Brad Froling is at the Radius Group, and Sharif Moharram is a partner at Price Pastel in Parma. So we have a pretty powerful group, a very, very knowledgeable group who's really helped and assisted the Apple Foundation. And the primary focus of the foundation is fundraising, and we have an active fundraising committee, parent fundraising committee, curriculum development committee we spoke about a little bit earlier, the social committee, programs have to have fun, and then the technology committee. We have plans to make sure we have a nice technology infrastructure, hopefully in a room that we call Apple's Room at some point at San Marcos High School. So that's the parent involvement equals program success. We have two parents that would like to share a little bit about Apple, George and Carol Flores. Many of you know Carol Flores from her work in education as the coordinator of dual enrollment at Santa Barbara City College. She now is the director of continuing education. And I thought it would be nice to give you a little parent perspective from the eyes of a parent, the Apple program. So George and Carol.
Good evening. First, I want to start off and thank the Santa Barbara School Board, the District Board, for allowing us to share our feelings about the program and what that's meant for us and the opportunities it's giving us and our daughter. Both Carol and myself, we feel like we're very committed to education, and so our daughter Alexis had she started off in a small private school, went from kindergarten through 8th grade, and we really valued that experience in a small classroom setting. And when it came time for her to decide on a high school, it was a little daunting because the schools are obviously a lot larger. And but this was her decision. But we went to various schools and in the community, and we went to different programs and see what they had to offer. And when we heard about the Apple program, we felt like it was a great match for us as well as for our daughter. It allowed us to kind of get the feeling of a small classroom settings, very challenging courses, but it also offered a lot of balance in not just the academics, but the things that they're doing as extracurricular activities. So that for us was a very attractive component of the program. Over the summer, we had met with Mr. Ed Behrens at the time, and that's one of the ways we had learned about Apple back then. Let's see, got some notes here. So over the course of the school year, I think we've really been excited how the classes have been both challenging and enriching for our daughter. We really value tremendously the parent participation. That was kind of a hidden gem in the program itself. The parents are very committed, and we feel like they're as excited about the program as we are. So I'll let my wife Carol here, as many of you know her, elaborate.
Hi, thank you so much for your time this evening. As I was sitting there in the chair, I was looking at your mission statement there, and I was thinking, okay, we've got our notes about the Apple program, and I'm reading there, that the mission of the board of directors of the school district is educational success for all students through high expectations and a commitment to excellence to empower them to reach their full potential, responsible, ethical, productive citizens, diverse, and changing world. I know you guys know that by heart, but I was like, this is exactly what the Apple is, and it goes above and beyond that. I've been in education for a long time in this community, and I used to oversee the dual enrollment program, so I'm very committed to high school education and transitioning to college and supporting students, and all that I can say is the combination of the rigor that the program has with the fact that there's block scheduling is dynamic. I mean, these students can go and learn at a challenging class in 90 minutes, not 50, 55 minutes, 90 minutes. That combination is amazing. I think definitely San Marcos is the only one that can provide that. It gives students an opportunity to go deeper into the curriculum. In particular, I think what's very
unique about this program is yes, it emphasizes the academic, but the leadership, the social justice aspect and the cultural awareness, that combined with the academics makes for amazing citizens and students in our community. The personalized aspect where they're working in that cohort model and getting to know each other. Alexis came from not knowing any kids to knowing them all and just really coming to a huge school and feeling happy about it. I can go on, but here's what I want to say is that we, the parents, really support this program, support San Marcos High School, support the school district, and we really want you to know about what we're doing. I think what Eric has put together and Ed has put together and the teachers have been put together is an amazing model that is rich with liberal arts education combined with all the other amazing things they need to be successful. So I hope that you will support this program, continue to support and raise awareness of it so that we can get everything that's needed, the diversity, all the other things that we need. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Thanks, Carol. Here's another picture of Magic Mountain. I got really excited, obviously, about Magic Mountain because it was just the essence of some of what we're doing. This is the entire group on the Viper roller coaster. I don't know how. They were not happy with me. No, I don't know how you got them all. How'd you do? That was a physics experiment to get them all on there in those lines, but. Student leadership is a big part of the program. We recently nominated and elected a student officer group. Madeline Froling, we have a president, a vice president, secretary, co-treasurers, because that'll be a big job with the fundraising as a startup group. We also have committee chairs for all the different committees, and those mirror the committees of the parents as well. I think, you hear me rattle on and on and on. You can tell I'm passionate about the program, but it's nice to hear the voices, I think, of program participants. And so I'm going to bring up a few kids to come up and just give some examples of some good moments that you've had in the program. I think there's no better way to talk about Apple than to hear it from the kids themselves. So Madeline, Alex, anybody else who wants to come on up, Claire, Rachel, if you'd like to. Oh, come on, leaders. Get up there.
I'm Madeline Froling. I'm in the Apple program. Oh. There we go. I'll just speak louder. I'm in the Apple program. I'm Madeline Froling. As part of being in the Apple program, we are all called to be above and beyond of just like any honor student. And it's just amazing to be in this class where it's way more diverse than what he put up on here. We were going through the slides today because we had a meeting of the leadership group to talk about what are the things we're going to talk about tonight, and really just get to just reminisce about how great this program is. And there's so many more. It's so much more diverse than what he had put up there. We have Hungarian. We have all these different great things, and that culture that we get to see inside of the classroom and then go outside of it and get to see all these great things is amazing. We had. The Miracle Worker, we were reading it in the English class, and I was just touched by it. I loved it. I love the sign language. I loved it, and I really was inspired by that. And then not only that, Mrs. Mandarino got to bring in a blind lady, and she got to speak about all the things that are miscommunicated throughout everything that they have to go through, and it was just eye-opening. And we've had so many more great experiences that have to do with that. Within Physics Day and just all these great things, we get to apply it outside of the classroom and inside of the classroom, which is just mind-blowing because you wouldn't be able to do that anywhere else.
Hi, I'm Alexis Flores, and you probably just heard my parents just speak, Carol and George. I went to Crane School from kindergarten through 8th grade, and so choosing a high school was a really big decision for me. And I knew I wanted to have a similar experience like that I had at Crane, where you really get to know the teachers and all the students really well. So what really drew me to San Marcos was the Apple program, because it was academically challenging, and I would get a similar experience that I had at Crane. And I really like the idea of being in a class where I know everyone, yet still having the large high school experience also. And at first, I was a little apprehensive about going to a big high school, but I'm really enjoying the Apple program, and I'm glad that I chose San Marcos.
My name is Owen Lincoln. I'm not up on the slide, but the Apple program has really helped me succeed in all the academic courses that I've taken. Originally, my choice was between Santa Barbara High School and San Marcos High School, both great high schools. But what drew me to San Marcos originally was the block schedule, and I really liked just having 4 classes and being able to focus like really on your homework and the class that you have at the time, and how it is similar to college life. And then to hear about the Apple program and how we would be going above and beyond, almost as if what GATE did for me in elementary school and junior high. I was in GATE and from 3rd through 8th grade. And so just having the Apple program and having it allow me to go like above and beyond and really make connections with my teachers and connections with the students around me has it's really brightened my high school experience. So yeah, the Apple program it's been really nice, and I've got to know a lot of people. I knew many of the people in the Apple program before, but I've become a lot closer to them through this program. So, thanks.
So moving forward, the Apple program, this is a great photo of us up at El Cap in front of one of the cabins up there. Had a great experience up at El Cap. Moving forward, realizing the program benefits, it's my belief that the Apple program will continue to attract motivated, bright, high-achieving students, and they'll be attracted to San Marcos. And I think that's really important. You know, as an alumni from San Marcos, I've suffered through watching traditional families that are San Marcos families go off to a different school. And it's been very frustrating for me. It would be like having a Cadero not go to Santa Barbara High School. That would never happen. Yeah. Well, that's what I thought. So here we are with this program. And what's interesting about the IB program when it was established out of Santa Barbara, or Dos Pueblos High School, is that, you know, they have, 30, 40 kids in the IB program, but all their friends came out there too. And that's been the real tough part. It's like you may not go out for a particular program, because we know there's 30 and, you know, the engineering soon to be greater, but their friends went out with them. And it was a dirty reason to go. But they have gone. And I believe that this program will help the equity of the schools in that regard. Graduates, my plan is to have a cyclical relationship with the community. That I believe that these kids, when they go off to NYU and Berkeley and you know, some of the Ivy League schools, that they're going to return to Santa Barbara and contribute to the community. And I think that's a big deal. That's a real big deal. The Apple students' leadership, intelligence, creativity go beyond their first period cohort group, because they're only in one cohort group. Teachers are coming up to me saying, these kids are amazing. They're leaders. They're bringing up the class. My math class is incredible because of these kids. Careful, careful. So I think that's a huge benefit to the program. Of course, the publicity and attractiveness to San Marcos we just mentioned. The parent group, a sophisticated parent group, a motivated parent group, MBAs, MAs, MFCCs, CPAs, JDs, MDs, all in this 30 student parent cohort group. Fundraising efforts, I think, with the sophisticated parent group, the school benefits in many, many different ways through fundraising efforts. Not only the Apple program, but the site council and the PTA and raising money for the turf field and that kind of thing. So that's an important part for San Marcos High School. I think we'll see a shift in this community and towards San Marcos High School. I think our API scores were going to go up with 120 students that are high achieving. School rank's going to go up with 120 high achieving students. We're going to bring back those 4 National Merit Scholars that were in the San Marcos attendance area at DP. We're going to bring those kids back, and they're going to be San Marcos National Merit finalists. So I think we're going to see the program really be realized as a productive program, as a program that the community wants, and I think it's going to benefit, I think, our kids, our school, and our community. So thank you very much for your time this evening. We are obviously very excited about the program and the future of Apple as we look forward, and we hope to provide you more updates as we go. And we do want to pursue the Academy status at some point. We feel like that this program has all the elements of an Academy, and we would like to continue to pursue the Academy status as well. Appreciate your time this evening. Thank you. I don't know if you have any questions. You probably do. I do have a few parents that wanted to come up and maybe respond if you have any questions for them. I don't know if we have time. Do we have time for that?
I think we will have some time for questions from us, and if we want to address them to a parent, perhaps we can.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Nielsen. And in the spirit of full disclosure, I do have to admit that I had a cousin's daughter who was ASB president at San Marcos in the 90s.
See, the tide is truly turning.
I have to tell you that at her wedding, that betrayal was brought up.
I understand fully.
Okay. Be careful, there's a lot of us. Okay, board members? Ms. Lamont?
Well, I'd like to commend everybody involved with this program. It truly sounds and looks like an amazing program, and so of course we want amazing programs to expand. And you talked about diversity, it kept coming up, but I have a few questions. One, how are you defining diversity? What is diversity? What's your goal?
You know, it's a great question. You know, for me, diversity is bringing together a group of people with varying and differing backgrounds. So, if that means multicultural diversity, it means that. If it means gender diversity, I think it means that. I think if it, like we saw a slide, if it means learning challenges, you know, embracing kids of all different backgrounds. So that's what diversity means to me as a defining diversity in of itself. But I will say, with that said, in our community, you have to look at our demographic and diversity within our school site. And so we recognize that with 51% Latino students in a gifted and talented program or an honors program or an AP program representing 8% of your student body, you've got an issue. And to that, I hope that this program can make some changes and can participate in reducing that, what we have in front of us, I guess, right now. So,
along those lines, I guess that I would love to see in the future what some specific target goals are. Of the 120 students, how many might be first-generation college-bound? Because you have a great plan in place. You've taken the steps as a committee to outreach to target specific programs, but if I'm thinking first-gen college-bound, it would be really useful to just know, in the next 3 years, is the goal to increase it by 1%, or is it to double, whatever it might be now? Another thing is, you describe the parent fundraising structure, and so I'm guessing that all of the activities that are done are completely fundraised, but that is a guess, or is there a per student cost, or how does that work?
The activities so far have been low cost, and we've been able to actually work out and have relationships with the Granada Theater, the program up at El Capitan. We went to Appalachian Spring for $10. So a couple different ways. You know, I've spoken in confidence as a guidance counselor to some students that may not be able to afford the program or programs, and so to that we will march down the road of trying to raise funds. But we've had parents themselves, other parents that could support kids, step up in this first year and help out in that capacity. And really, some parents can 1 month, and then some parents can't the other. And so every kid has had the opportunity to go. But what I'd like to do is you know, have a situation where there's a scholarship opportunity there and in place for kids, so they don't really have to worry about that.
Can I just ask a quick follow-up question to that? When students are recruited to the program, are they told that there will be these events that may cost additional funds, or are they told that there won't be any cost? What's the way that they're recruited?
We have actually, probably to be totally honest, haven't said either way that there's going to be costs or not. My intent is to raise money so there won't be any costs if there's a need. So that's the intent of the program, and to date it hasn't been an issue. But again, we're going to work really hard to get the corporate sponsorships, do the grant writing, and have a fundraising plan right now in place with our board of directors on how we're going to make sure that happens going forward, so we can sustain everybody being able to participate in the program.
And along those lines, do you have an idea of how much it's costing right now per student?
Yeah, so last year I didn't put. Let me back up with the application process. What I did was last year is I just took one of the other academies' application and kind of just used it. And so as I was looking through it today this year, there's some things that I'd like to change going forward. But one of the things I did change last year was I didn't say that there would be any donation if needed, or as you can contribute kind of donations for the program to sustain it. Because obviously the Santa Barbara School District is not going to go above and beyond and fund a program like this. So we have to, in order to do that, we have to seek out private funds. And so what we've said in this application, I don't know if you have it, but is that each academy asks for funds in order to sustain the program. If you can contribute, there are other ways to contribute. Certainly fundraising, parent participation, driving to the event, those types of efforts. But if you can, we would like to have parents contribute as part of it. Now, to that, the more fundraising we do, the more corporate sponsorships, the more that we do, that gets minimized. But it is the harsh reality of our program, and it's a very interesting time, I think, in that the private community and the public education and how that interacts and the relationship that's going on today. And it's interesting because it's a model. I mean, some of these academies are very successful, and they're kind of a little bit of both, So it's hard to get around that. If you want to go to Magic Mountain, you want to do some of these things, you certainly have to have the private funds to do it. So one of the sources, if a parent can contribute, is to ask parents.
And I think I might have missed it, but what was the estimated cost per student?
Estimated cost per student to really fully realize. Yeah. Again, this is going to shock you. Mm-hmm. But this is talking about the trip to D.C. years later, the trip to Arizona with Habitat Humanity and all the things that we want to do was about $1,600 or $1,500, I think, per student. That's no corporate sponsors, that's zero balance and what have you. So I think we can make a dent in that quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation. You all look very sharp, you're very articulate, and you're very passionate about the program. So thanks for the presentation.
Other board members? Ms. Parker?
I love the academy ideas at our high school, and I'm thrilled at this opportunity at San Marcos. I think it's great when you build smaller cohorts of students that get to know each other really well. I have a bunch of questions for you.
Awesome.
First is, how many applied? How many students applied last year, and how many were accepted?
Yeah, so in about 3 months, we had, I think we had about 50 applications, 55 applications. We had 30 accepted,
30.
Which is right in between the floor and the ceiling. So that's kind of where we made the mark as far as class size. So 30 were in. Honestly, I expected a few to drop, but nobody has. So
you think you're going to have, looks like 100% retention for next year?
Yes.
And when is your application deadline for this coming year?
The application the window opened. Again, the application process is exactly like the college application process. I felt like, hey, they'll get an experience applying to four-year institutions. So we have, letters of recommendation, extracurricular activities. It's a holistic, it's a whole student view and picture of them. But to answer your question, May 1st is the application deadline. So we give them from the 15th to the 1st to gather up all the application materials.
I'm sorry, from the 15th?
March 15th to May 1st.
Okay.
Actually, sorry, it's May 2nd. May 1st is a Sunday, I think, so I had to move that.
Okay. So you don't have you started to get applications in?
No,
yeah, it's
not yet.
very early.
Not yet. I have this year on the website, so they can access the application either in the counseling office. I plan on brown mailing some applications to the junior high schools, but on our website, if you want to download the application, I ask that one of the first steps is to put in your name and email address, because last year I was hand entering all that stuff, and so I have this Google Doc, back half that I can see some applicants and specifically interested in Latino surnames and have actually made some headway, and I'm pretty excited about that. So it's worked. Our efforts have been working. I think we are attracting high-achieving, underrepresented students to the program, and I think that's a huge success for us. I don't know if they're going to get in. That's the other part of the application process, is that a lot of it's kind of a blind process. But I think the more that we can increase that likelihood, I think the better off we are with that regard.
I guess one of my questions around that, you're talking about how detailed your application process is, and especially for underrepresented students who don't have experience with that kind of thing, that might be quite off-putting. And I guess one of my questions is, you're talking about going to some of the feeder principals. Feeder principals, feeder families might really be able to talk about what might be barriers for them to apply to the program, and I don't know how much conversation has been around, because it doesn't sound like it was built originally. It sounds like it was built to try to draw back high-achieving students to San Marcos, and not necessarily to be a diverse program. Obviously, as a board, we're going to want both, and so we're really going to be looking at how that plays out. I have
a question for you.
Yeah.
How would you suggest that we formulate an application process where you cannot violate any sort of constitutional issue, but can increase the likelihood of
well, I guess if you've if you've sat down with, for example, Rosemary Cordero or Joanne Keynes, did you bring the application with you?
Yeah, they.
And did you have that conversation of what do we have here that would be a barrier that you see to your students? Would it be possible for us to bring this to your ELAC committee?
That's what I was going to say. Go to an ELAC committee and ask them.
And have that parent conversation. Can we go to your class and bring a sample application and say, what are the issues around just the application process itself that might be a turnoff, or what's in our program? For example, traveling. There can just be so many cultural issues around having your child leave you that might be a turnoff to parents in some of our underrepresented families. So there's lots of really productive discussions that you could be having, and I hope that you will, because we want you to be successful in that. Let's see, what else do I have?
Can I add one more
Yeah.
thing to that?
If you want to come up to the,
We need you to come to the mic if you're going to speak. Thank you.
I had the wonderful opportunity to do a little piece on the Spanish television station, and I stated in the interview opportunity that we are available to do some workshops, and so I have told Eric that I'm available to do actually some workshops in Spanish for parents, and so George and I are both available to do that and to kind of help them with that. Eric and I had kind of talked about that, but time moves fast, and so I think that maybe that's something, an opportunity that we can offer. Thanks.
Great.
Ms. Lamone?
And another suggestion is, and I'm sure you already considered it, but if, just like this is modeling some of the higher ed applications, there's been more conscientious efforts to put in feeder questions that talk about the broader impact, that won't violate any type of state code against anything like that. So there are some models out there of some higher ed applications that would mirror exactly what some students would have to do to apply to some of the schools. And I'm happy to work with you.
That'd be awesome.
To think about it.
Thanks, Bunny. Appreciate that.
and
Ms. Parker?
a couple other things. One is the cost of the program. And we recently in a board brief got the cost breakouts of what our academies are costing the district office in particular, the general fund. And this academy was actually put down as having no cost, but the reality is if students are taking extra sections, there is a cost. And my estimate would be that the program, when it's fully implemented, will cost the district about $48,000 a year for the number of extra sections that are run. But that's about 0.6 FTE. We're currently supplying that for MAD and for VADA. And I just want to be sure that we throw that into the mix as we discuss that, because that's something that I've been bringing up again and again. I want to be sure that we're being fair across all of our high schools. So that's one point. The other thing I did want to bring up, and that is the piece about the STAR testing and the high-achieving students coming back. They're fantastic students already at San Marcos, at all three of our high schools. And I feel like looking at the overall API is kind of missing a little bit of the point. When you break out the APIs at Dos Pueblos and at Santa Barbara High, and Santa Barbara High has virtually identical demographics now to San Marcos, their scores by subgroup are typically 20 to 30 points higher. And my guess would be that that's because of the block schedule and the issues around taking standardized tests and how that aligns with the block. Can't know that for sure. I mean, Dr. Hayden would probably have lots of comments about that. But I'm not sure that this is going to help. I mean, that this will just bring some students back, but it wouldn't necessarily help if the issue is block scheduling. That's not really going to help, except for you're changing the demographics for your overall API. But I hope that the focus of the school is really on subgroup and what we're doing for the subgroups and raising the scores in that way.
Mr. Herron, did you have a comment?
I'm just curious. I had the same question for the MAD group, and I'm just curious. Can you tell me on your application, since I haven't seen it, what do you ask about the family?
Name, email address, all the general application information.
Can you define that a little bit?
Occupation.
Okay. I asked the MAD Academy to eliminate that from the application. Why do you need their occupation?
That's a great question. And actually, it was the MAD Academy that I pulled that from.
I know,
so.
they've eliminated it now, so I'm just curious. Why do you need it?
Yeah, you don't. You don't need it. I mean, peripherally, maybe just connecting someone to a particular committee or getting strength areas, but as part of the application process, you can do that afterwards.
After the fact, because if there's any hint that the occupation, I mean, you talk about MBAs, MAs, FCCs, CPAs, JDs, that's pretty sophisticated parent groups. They're parents who won't apply because they're not, quote, in their minds, sophisticated parent group. You may turn some off, but if there's any hint at all that the occupation is a part of the process of getting approved or getting into the program, I think that works against the, so I'd like to, if there is occupation on that, I'd like to see that eliminated.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. And the other thing is this whole idea of cost. I mean, if there's any implication that's going to cost $1,500, even though it's voluntary, and if the mentality is, hey, I'm not going to be able to do that, then you're going to also, it works against.
To that, just real quick, it's a hard issue for a director, because if you don't say anything, then it's one thing, and then like this group, sorry everybody, you say, oh, by the way, it does cost a little money extra beyond what we're funded by the district. That's kind of not being transparent up front to begin with, and so it's a tough line, and I solicit your recommendations and expertise on this. I just kind of had studied the other academies. I was at Santa Barbara High for years and years and years, and kind of see what's going on there, and said, hey, why not? We got to kind of do that anyway. So it's a tough one. And
it doesn't matter how it's promoted.
Yeah.
I've seen letters that, hey, and how hardcore it is going after it. You can say it's going to cost $1,500, but then do you put out a list? These people paid, these didn't, and we want 100% or whatever.
Well, I think you'll be able to get direction from Ed Behrens, who's very knowledgeable about that. You cannot say this costs extra money. You cannot set an expectation about the amount. You cannot set a deadline on fundraising. You have to make it clear that this is entirely voluntary.
But if I could just chime in on that, because being a parent of a 9th grader who has lots of friends going into various academies in 10th grade, parents who were not told that there was even going to be any request, huge shock and disappointment after the fact. Not because it was made clear that it was voluntary, but they felt terrible that they hadn't even known that that was a possibility. And so I was really struck by, that is an issue too. I appreciate you bringing that up, Mr. Nielsen.
Okay, Mrs. Deacon?
Which brings us back to the scholarship piece. Do you envision a way to be able to help underwrite the cost for students who wouldn't be able to afford it then?
Yeah, we do. And it's going to be as strong as our foundation is, and as strong as our parent group is in fundraising and getting out in the community and being able to get grant write. And we're active right now doing that. Our 501c3 is in the process now. I think we're May away from the IRS sending us the approval letter or having us adjust a bit. So it's been difficult to get out there and start doing that until you can have the tax exemption status. But that's the goal. I mean, the goal is, we have a great example out there at DP who've done some incredible things, and I think that there's ways to get into the community and vie for community support, so that then we can scholarship for participation and what have you. Yeah.
Good, thank you. Because I think when you talk about diversity, looking at socioeconomic diversity is going to be really key. And you've got a great group of students here as a resource in terms of identifying barriers to the application process. So I think I'd probably really use my students to get their thoughts on that. You mentioned the application process is a blind process. Could you just describe how that works?
We have part of the application, process is a blind process. We have students who submit applications, and then we do a blind read. We have 2 essays that we'll read. So we read it, we number it, we have a rubric. So the essay part of the application process is a blind process, but certainly not the recommendations, certainly not the rest of the application. The idea that we're looking at extracurricular involvement, just like 4-year institutions do, and so the essay portion is blind. Any portion that would require being confidential or blind in fairness is what we did last year. So.
You might want to take Ms. Limon up on some of her ideas about how to make sure that in that process you don't inadvertently lose students that you want. I'll just conclude with the thought that you mentioned friends went with friends into the IB program. I know historically we understand that in order to get underrepresented students to stay in a program, that it's important to have peers in that program, and so you really need critical mass in order for that to work. So I would just really encourage you to think about that in your selection process so that people feel comfortable in the program and that you maintain the great continuity that you've got already.
I will say quickly that our program is a little different than multimedia arts and design, visual arts and design, engineering, health, in that it's not necessarily a vocational-based program. And so we have the challenges of what we saw right before our presentation, a district-wide and systemic issue. And I believe that we can do our part in helping with that. We can certainly increase diversity. But it does bring greater challenges for this particular program. And so I hope that the sustainability is, in the context of deciding sustainability, I would hope that the board would consider the program in and of itself in that context.
Okay, I'll wrap this up, I guess. Well, first of all, I have to say that your last comment kind of concerns me. When this program came before the board, we were originally assured that it would achieve diversity goals, goals that are intended to where the demographics of the program are intended to reflect the demographics of the school. And I, for one, I'll just tell you straight out, if an application for academy status were to come before me and it has not met that goal for achieving a reflective demographic, I would not vote to support an academy. I'm at the point where I don't think that we should be supporting any additional enrichment programs that are not including Latino students. They're not the minority students, they're the majority students in most cases. So we're leaving out, we're saying we're not reaching the majority. So that concerns me, so that's why I just have to sort of preface my comments with that. But the other thing that I was going to ask is a lot of the enrichment programs that we saw, the cultural events that the students attended, the speakers, the lectures, et cetera, seemed very traditional in their focus and very much focused on the dominant culture sort of values and tastes. And I'm wondering if you might be more successful in attracting underrepresented students if some of the events and cultural activities that you do were reflective of diverse cultures. And so that might be something that you would consider, including in the program.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those were just my final comments, if that's final with the board. Okay, and I do want to thank all the students for coming and speaking on behalf of a program that you clearly feel very passionately about and that you are clearly having a great deal of interest and fun in participating in. And it's nice of you to give up a school night to come and sit here and listen to all of the adults discuss this in what I'm sure is often kind of dry tones, but thank you for being here. Oh,
Yeah, I'd like to say the plan you've laid out for accomplishing the goal that Mrs. Cordero just mentioned is the best I've seen. So I know your heart is there, your intent is there, and it's very well planned. I haven't seen that anyplace else in this district, so I want to commend you for the thought you put in that. I think it shows you understand the concern, and I think you're going to do it. So, thank you.
And before we wrap up, I think we do need to be very clear about the diversity goal. As you saw in the write-up, this is the second year as a pilot. The first year, the programmer really didn't have enough time to go out and really recruit properly. Right. So we were initially a little bit resistive because the idea was coming to us at the same time the Matt Academy was under fire for not having a diverse student population. Engineering Academy was under fire for not having a diverse student population. our board focus goals include diversity and are very specific about that in higher level programs, and this is one of those higher level programs. So we allowed this to come forward for a second year as a pilot, and we have told the school very clearly that your goal, your overall goal, is really to reflect the demographics of the school. But to be very clear about that for this next year, you need to hit 25% Latino representation this next year before you can come to the board for approval. This is not an approved program. This is still a superintendent's pilot, and I do believe they can achieve that, and I do believe that they've been able to pursue a number of things this year that they were not able to the previous year. So on that basis, and Mr. Behrens is very clear about this as well, on that basis, it may be coming back to you this fall for your approval. Thank you.
With that, we will thank you again for being here. And yes, we typically, I'm sorry, does anybody, I'm sorry? No. We typically don't take additional comments. I apologize. So at this time, we're going to adjourn for a short break. If you wanted to talk to us individually, you can. Yeah. Okay. So we will adjourn, and again, thank you for being here.